dependable Pedro Martinez. And tonight, here in Cleveland, Martinez goes gunning for his 22nd win of the season. Last Friday night in New York, he struck out 17 and completely throttled the Yankees.
2 strikes, 2 outs, bottom half of the ninth. Red Sox 3, Yankees 1. Here's the pitch. Strike 3!
And tonight, Pedro faces the highest scoring offense in the American League in the Cleveland Indians. And the way the Indians have dominated play in the American League Central this season, you can call Jacobs Field the spring training home of the Cleveland Indians. As play begins tonight in the American League East, the Boston Red Sox trail the Yankees by 3.5 games, by 4 in the loss column, but they lead the Oakland A's by 3 games in the race for the wild card. Welcome to Jacobs Field, everybody. Charlie Steiner, Dave Campbell, and we have an outstanding pitcher's duel tonight. Pedro Martinez, in his last 5 starts, he's merely 4-0. He has an ERA of slightly over a half a run per game. In 31 innings, he has struck out 58 and walked only 5, and he has already been seated the Cy Young Award trophy.
Yeah, I think the only question right now, Charlie, a lot of people are writing and talking about the fact he may be an MVP candidate. I mean, he has really put the Red Sox on his shoulders and carried them. They are in the midst of a brilliant road trip, 8-3 in their toughest trip of the year. And what better way to put a capper on it tonight to go 9-3 with their ace, Pedro Martinez.
And another Dominican dandy will have at it for the tribe. Bartolo Colon, at the age of 24, has had an outstanding second half of the season. He's gone 9-2, and his ERA has just been 2.5 since the All-Star break.
He can hit 101 and 102 on the radar gun. That's even better than Pedro Martinez. He doesn't have quite the finesse pitches, the curveball and changeup consistently, but he is going to probably be their opening game starter in postseason, barring any kind of an injury, and he's on a roll right now.
It's an outstanding pitchers matchup tonight. It doesn't get any better than this. Pedro Martinez and Bartolo Colon. We're coming to you from Jacobs Field in Cleveland, and 2 of the best players in all of baseball on display tonight, Nomar and Robbie. Floyd, here in Cleveland tonight, it is a perfect night. The wind is blowing in a little bit. It's cool. It's beginning to feel like fall, and as far as the Indians are concerned, fall can't happen fast enough. Mike Hargrove has sent the Cleveland Indians into the postseason for the 5th consecutive year, and he will be facing Jose Offerman, Damon Buford, and Brian Daubach, the first 3 hitters for the Red Sox tonight, to be followed by Nomar Garciaparra, the American League's leading hitter. Troy O'Leary, probably the best hitter in the American League you know nothing about. Scott Hatteberg, Jason Varitek, Wilton Veras, and Trot Nixon, the Red Sox lineup. And they will be facing Bartolo Colon, the 24-year-old right-hander, making his 30th start of the season with a record of 16-5. He has lowered his ERA in the second half of the season by a full point down to a shade over 4. And he has struck out 149 while working 69. And Dave, as you mentioned, it looks as if the Indians have finally found their opening day postseason starter in this hard-throwing right-hander.
Yeah, and the other thing they've done with Colon is make sure he's going to be rested for postseason. His last start, he only went 6 innings through 106 pitches. About this time last year, he went down for about 2 weeks, was throwing 83 miles an hour in a game he couldn't get out of the first inning. So they are primed to keep him strong. They would like to have home field advantage throughout. They have a 3-game lead over the Yankees in Texas as far as that goes. But the primary thing is they want to get their pitching rested and ready to go for postseason.
Defensively for the Indians, Tyler Houston at third base tonight as Travis Fryman continues to get over that wounded knee. Vizquel and Alomar strong up the middle, of course, and Jim Thome at first base. Richie Sexton in left field. Kenny Lofton, he off 2 trips to the disabled list since the All-Star break in center field, but he seems to be feeling fine now. David Justice is in right field. Manny Ramirez still out with a bruised knee hit by a pitch on Saturday by Chicago's Jim Parquet.
Yeah, Einer Diaz catching. They're spotting Sandy Alomar, and they're also spotting Travis Fryman. Both of them have been playing with heavy braces on their legs. They're going to probably have to have surgery in the off-season. But they feel that both of them are going to be ready for postseason. So Mike Hargrove keeping an eye on making sure he doesn't re-injure those two players and get him strong. And also keeping an eye on trying to get that best record in the American League to assure home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
Stepping into the batter's box for the Red Sox is Jose Offerman. Jose at .295, 6 home runs, 62 RBIs. The switch-hitting second baseman. Batting from the left-hand side, and here's the first pitch of the ball game. Fastball, outside and high. 1 ball and no strikes. Damon Buford on deck, Brian Dahlback to follow. Two balls and no strikes, and so Colon quickly falls behind the first hitter he faces.
Bartolo not showing good velocity early. Let's see if he can pump it up a few notches.
Offerman in his career is 6 for 15 against Colon, a .400 hitter. And now it's 3 balls and no strikes.
Colon doing a little landscape work on the mound. Sometimes that bullpen mound a little bit different than the mound out there where you start throwing your first pitches, and sometimes it takes a while to get into a groove.
Here's the 3-0. 3 balls and 1 strike. Can't help but wonder if the 24-year-old Colon is maybe overly pumped up, facing almost his mentor in Pedro Martinez. 3 balls and 2 strikes.
Well, it's the third time they've gone head-to-head this year. Each of them has pitched well, but Pedro's gotten the 2 decisions in his favor against Colon.
You have no idea how popular and revered an athlete Pedro Martinez is in the Dominican. And a high fly ball into short center field. We're underway as Offerman flies to Kenny Lofton. And Pedro Martinez with a record of 21-4. So Martinez is 17 games over 500. The Red Sox as a team are 21 over 500. They'd be 4 over 500 without Pedro. Here's Damon Buford at .239. Takes a ball in the dirt. Buford's on base percentage is just .295. He strikes out too much and doesn't walk enough. That fastball crackles the glove of Einer Diaz.
Charlie,
1 ball, 1 strike.
Until Juan Marichal came along, most of your Latin pitchers were kind of cunny thumbers and crafty.
Drilled. Oh, what a backhand stop by Tyler Houston. Tyler Houston throws out Damon Buford, 2 gone.
Well, Mike Hargrove pushing the right buttons tonight. Fryman getting the night off, and Houston coming up with a defensive gem. He was playing about even with the bag because Buford with the speed will lay down a bunt now and then, but just great reactions by Tyler Houston, and he slings an arrow onto Jim Thome.
You know, Houston, when he was drafted by the Atlanta Braves, was an infielder. The Braves turned him into a catcher, and he hated every minute of it. And then finally this year, he got to play nearly every day in Chicago at third base until his hitting went south on him. And now he's here to back up Travis Fryman. Brian Dahlback at .297 with 19 home runs and 70 runs batted in. He's making a claim for Rookie of the Year in the American League. Let go last year by the Florida Marlins and was on the verge of going to Japan when Dan Duquette stepped in at the last minute, said, put that passport down and I'll give you $250,000, come play for us.
Well, Dahlbach had that wonderful surge about 3 weeks ago, 15 RBIs in a 4-game span, but since then, 9 for his last 70. He has really been slumping, and Jimmy Williams has been trying to spot him here and there to give him a little time off.
2 out, nobody on. Top half of the first inning. And it's 3 balls and a strike to Dahlback with Nomar Garciaparra on deck.
Charlie, just to complete that thought about the Latin American pitchers, now with guys like Colon and Pedro and so many of the young hard throwers, the lesson is the instructors went home and told them to throw all the time and build arm strength, and they have.
3 balls and 2 strikes.
I think there might be a lesson to be learned for young kids out here in the United States. Stop babying your arm. Go out and throw. Play long toss. Strengthen the arm. Just stop throwing the curveballs when you're 10 years old. Just throw and throw and throw, but throw fastballs.
3 balls, 2 strikes, and 2 outs, and Pedro Martinez looking at his young fellow countryman strike out Brian Dahlback and retire the Red Sox in order. Kenny Lofton, Omar Vizquel, and Roberto Alomar to have their hacks at Pedro Martinez when we come back. As we begin the home half of the first inning, Pedro Martinez will be facing Kenny Lofton, Omar Vizquel, and Roberto Alomar, to be followed by David Justice, Harold Baines, and Jim Thome. And Richie Sexton, Tyler Houston, and Einar Diaz will round it out. Out-of-town scoreboard, the Mets have scored 2 runs in the top of the 8th at Colorado and lead the Rockies 7-5. Cincinnati with an early 4-0 lead over the Cubs in the 3rd inning at Synergy Field. 27-year-old Pedro Martinez in search of his 22nd win of the season.
Well, I don't know what we can say that we haven't said about the young man. 21 wins, 4 losses, the best ERA in the league, the most strikeouts in the league, number 3 in fewest walks per 9 innings, lowest batting average against. And the defense behind him, if he's like he was last Friday, he won't need much help. Damon Buford, a gifted center fielder. Trot Nixon has played well. Wilton Veras at third base is replacing John Valentin, who has tendonitis in his knee.
So Kenny Lofton leading it off for the Indians. Kenny at .313, 7 home runs, 33 RBIs. Kenny has had 2 trips to the disabled list since the All-Star break. Between a hamstring and a bulging disc, he hasn't had a stolen base since June 26th. But he is slowly rounding back into postseason shape. And around Cleveland, that's all that really counts anymore. You know, the Red Sox begin the night trailing the Yankees by 3.5 games. Here comes the 1-1 to Lofton. 1 ball and 2 strikes. The last time that the Indians' lead was as little as 3.5 games was April the 28th. And Lofton is struck out, and so Pedro Martinez with his first strikeout of the ball game. And now here's Bill Peter with our first update of the night. Billy?
All right, Charlie, you're talking about the Yankees. Playoff pursuit as the Yankees lead the Red Sox by 3.5 games, taking on Toronto after that dramatic win over the Jays last night. Paul O'Neill, the grand slam in the 9th last night. Today in the 1st, drives in Derek Jeter, and the Yanks have the lead by the score of 1-0, still batting in the top of the 1st inning.
Omar Vizquel takes a strike. Omar at .329, 4 home runs, 64 RBIs. Vizquel, the 9th leading hitter in the American League. Can't help but wonder what kind of damage that loss that the Blue Jays suffered at the hands of the Yankees last night will do. That was just a crushing blow for a young team.
Well, they've also lost Joey Hamilton and Chris Carpenter, 2 of their starting pitchers. So I think about time to think about sticking a fork in the Blue Jays. That's going to be a tough uphill run for them.
Vizquel with a .388 on-base percentage. I mean, you take a look at the on-base percentage of this team. Here comes the 2-1. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Lofton at .414. Vizquel .388. Alomar .432. David Justice .419. So basically the first 4 hitters get on base about 40-45% of the time. Little wonder they lead the league in 899 runs scored. And that line drive into the dugout.
Got down into the camera well, too, but I guess everybody's okay, but hazardous duty pay down there. Come on, somebody make a play. Save those cameramen.
Good seats still available. No thanks. Here's the 2-2 to Omar. 3 balls and 2 strikes.
Charlie, you hit it right on the head. I mean, with Manny Ramirez, he's missing his 4th game tonight with a bruised knee, but he'll be back in there probably against the Yankees tomorrow. Justice, Richie Sexson, Alomar, Fryman at the bottom of the lineup. The whole key to beating this club is keeping these 3 guys at the top off base.
Easier said than done. And now the 3-2. Slap foul.
You know, it's surprising. I mean, you expect Pedro Martinez to dominate, but one guy that would surprise you that's pitched brilliantly against Cleveland this year is John Burkett of Texas, who is basically an off-speed pitcher, changeup and curveballs.
And here comes the 3-2. Omar making life miserable for Pedro.
Those have all been borderline pitches, but Omar making sure he doesn't get rung up, at least without taking a hack.
You know, Pedro struck out the last 5 Yankee hitters he faced on Friday. And Omar still getting his money's worth. Pedro struck out Lofton, leading off the bottom half of the first. It's 6 in a row.
Well, right now, the fans are giving Omar Vizquel a hand for the great at-bat he's having against Pedro. This is going to be the 9th pitch in the at-bat, and that's another way, get him out of the game with a high pitch count.
Here comes the 3-2. Grounded to short, and Nomar throws out Omar, and there's 2 gone. Well, if you get the top 3 hitters in the Indian order out, you have a better chance of winning.
Well, Charlie, you gave the numbers, and it's an aggregate 404 on base percentage, and no wonder Manny Ramirez has 144 RBIs.
And Roberto Alomar having a career year. And the brilliant career that he has, and to say that this is his career year, makes it all the more remarkable. 23 home runs, 106 RBIs. You know, last year in Baltimore, Alomar had 14 home runs, 56 RBIs. He is on a pace to double both home runs and RBIs this year in his first season with the Tribe. And he couldn't be any happier playing in this town and with this club and with his brother. Takes a fastball inside, 1-2.
Well, Charlie, if there's ever any question about the axiom great pitching stops great hitting, Robbie Alomar is 0 for 13 lifetime against Pedro. Ken Griffey Jr. is 0 for 12.
1 ball, 2 strikes, and 2 outs. Foul tip, barely stays alive.
The thing that makes Pedro, I mean, just doubly difficult. He is a great competitor, number 1, but he has total command of 3 brilliant pitches: a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, a curve that seems to stop halfway up there and then bend downwards, and a changeup that just dives at the last second with great arm speed.
1 ball, 2 strikes, and 2 outs. And Alomar fouls it back and stays alive. If nothing else, the Indians are making Martinez work here in the first inning. A 10-pitch at-bat by Omar Vizquel. And here's Alomar making Pedro work. In the dirt, it's 2-2.
Well, that was the changeup after a 97-mile-an-hour fastball, so Pedro is good tonight. Make no mistake about it, but he doesn't have his usual great command yet, but he still retired the first 2 hitters.
He struck out 8 of his last 9 Yankees on Friday night and 1 of the first 2 Tribesmen. And now it's 3-2. You know, he was ahead of 22 of the 28 Yankee hitters he faced on Friday night. To this point, he has not the control that he had Friday. But he does manage to strike out 2 of the first 3 Indians he has faced. And going back to last Friday, 10 of his last 12. Leading it off for the Red Sox in the top half of the second. Nomar leading the American League at .350 with 23 home runs and 93 runs batted in. Takes it in the dirt. It's 2 balls and no strikes.
Charlie, you did not see Larry Walker miss a ball like that when he's healthy. He's missed 3 of the previous 4 games. He's going to have knee surgery after the season, but I've never seen him miss a ball like that.
Here's the 2-0 to Garciaparra with Troy O'Leary on deck and Scott Hatterberg to follow. Fastball inside and low. It's 3 balls and no strikes.
Well, he came back on the leadoff hitter, Jose Offerman, from 3-0 in the first inning. Let's see what he can do with the American League's leading hitter.
That fastball just cracks the glove of Einar Diaz. 94 miles an hour, 3 balls and a strike. So Garciaparra, the American League's leading hitter, at .350. Derek Jeter at .348. Drilled to right field. And David Justice has to play it 1 hop off the wall. There's going to be a play at second base. The throw just a little high as Garciaparra leads off the second inning with a rifle shot off the right field wall.
Well, David Justice took 1 step in. That ball fooled him. I don't think he would have caught it anyway because it hit about 3/4 of the way up the wall. But Colon behind 3-1 had to come in, and Nomar scorched it to right. That's his 39th double, and by the time we pick up Justice, he's already taken that false step, but he played it great off the wall, and Nomar had to hustle to get in for the lead double.
Garciaparra's 39th double of the season. Troy O'Leary, what a story he's been. .287, 27 home runs, 99 runs batted in. O'Leary with career highs in homers and RBIs. Fastball clocked at 95.
Dave Dombrowski, who was the general manager of the Montreal Expos and the Florida Marlins, drafted a guy named Charles Johnson twice. Dan Duquette, when he was with Milwaukee, was responsible for drafting Troy O'Leary. When he took over with the Red Sox, he went and got him.
1 ball and 1 strike to O'Leary. Last year, he had a career year with the Red Sox with 23 home runs, 83 RBIs. Already 4 more home runs than his previous career high and 16 more RBIs. Breaking ball, it's 2-1.
First Red Sox outfielder to have more than 25 home runs since Tony Armas did it back in the 80s. So Red Sox have been searching for some pop. Troy O'Leary, 27 and 99, has provided it for him.
He's one of the reasons why the Red Sox have fared as well as they have this year. You take a look at this team, the starting 9, and you figure, okay, it's a decent club. But 83 and 62 and within 3.5 of the Yankees. This is one of those teams where it truly has been a team effort. 2 legitimate superstars, Garciaparra, who's at second base, and Martinez, who's pitching tonight. 3-1. Colon is again behind the hitter.
There's no 2 managers in baseball that I respect more than Jimmy Williams and Art Howe out in Oakland. And I'm glad I don't have to vote for manager of the year because one of the 2 of them is extremely deserving of it.
3-1 to O'Leary with Scott Hatterberg on deck. Bottom of the screen, you see the top of the head of Nomar Garciaparra with the leadoff double to right. And popped up in the infield. Roberto Alomar about 10 steps back, makes the catch, and there's 1 out here in the second inning.
Well, Colon went a little bit off speed against Troy O'Leary behind 3-1, and O'Leary was out on the front foot. So that's a big out because Nomar's still perched at second base.
Sammy Sosa is coming to the plate now in the Cub-Red game in Cincinnati in search of his 60th home run. So we will keep track of Sammy. And, of course, Mark McGwire has that whole groin muscle. Sammy with 59. And Scott Hatteberg, 1 ball, no strikes. Hatteberg hitting just .209. No home runs, 6 RBIs, and actually a curious choice to be the DH tonight.
Curious because Reggie Jefferson is .438 against Bartolo Colon, but Jimmy Williams always seems to push the right buttons.
The one thing that Jimmy has done this year, probably more than any manager I can recall in recent years, he has used every one of his 25 players. Nobody sits for more than 2 or 3 days at a clip.
Well, with his pitching rotation in tatters right now, it's all the more remarkable, this 8-3 road trip they're on.
So Denny Nagel working on Sosa as Colon is working on Hatteberg.
The line in Boston, it's Pedro every 5th day, and then the other 4 games, it's anybody that can give Jimmy Williams 5 innings. Brett Saberhagen gave him 5 the other day. Sabe said, hey, I'm great. About once every 25 days, I can go to the post.
Well, David Cohn's a once-a-week pitcher, and now Saberhagen's once every 2 or 3 weeks. Here's the 2-1 to Hatteberg. Swing and a miss. It's 2 balls and 2 strikes.
But they've gone with Kent Merker, Mark Portugal, Pat Rapp, Tim Wakefield, Ramon Martinez. But all of those guys have been, Jimmy just feels lucky if he can get them through 5 and then turn it over to the bullpen.
So Sammy pops to Chris Steins. And here it's 2 balls, 2 strikes, 1 out. We're in the top half of the 2nd inning. Garcia-Parra with the leadoff double at second base, now with 1 gone. Hatteberg is struck out. That is the 2nd strikeout of the ball game for Bartolo Colon.
Well, Bartolo keeps going up on the radar gun. Bottom line is, if you're going to get Bartolo Colon, you better get him early, especially on a cool night, because he started out throwing 92 and 93. He's up near 97 and 98 right now, and there was a game earlier this year where he had 5 consecutive pitches clocked at 101 miles an hour.
Jason Varitek is now the hitter. Jason at .265, 16 home runs, 63 RBIs. There was a tremendous showdown here in Cleveland when the Angels were in town. End of the ball game against Mo Vaughn. Final 3 pitches were 101, 102, and 103 miles an hour, and finally got Mo to strike out. Call strike to Varitek, switch hitting catcher.
Well, rightly so. Pudge Rodriguez of Texas is easily the all-star catcher, but Jason Varitek, games played, home runs, he's in number 2 in a lot of categories in the American League to Pudge, but Pudge's numbers are so astronomical, Varitek gets lost in the shuffle.
Takes a fastball. It's 1 ball and 1 strike to Jason Varitek, who came over with Derek Lowe in the trade a couple of years ago for Heathcliff Slocum. What a trade that turned out to be for Dan Duquette and the Red Sox. They got a closer and a starting catcher for a guy who's now in St. Louis. A ball, a strike, and 2 outs.
Well, Varitek's a guy got him off and winging on this road trip. They lost the first game of this 12-game trip in Seattle, but the next couple of games, Varitek hit 3 homers against the team that signed him, and the Red Sox won the final 3 games of that series up in Seattle.
Now the 1-1. 2 balls and a strike. Wilton Veras is on deck. And the Red Sox this season, as you take a look at Veras, 21 games over 500. All the more remarkable in that Jimmy Williams has used 8 different DHs and 4 different closers. Talk about mix and match. I'll take 1 from Group A and 2 from Group B. Varitek is now 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Well, that's what Colon needs to do. You saw when he got behind Garcia-Parra 3-1, he came fastball, and Nomar crushed it off the right field wall, but he was behind Varitek 2-1. Jason sitting dead red, and Colon threw the breaking ball for a strike. That makes his fastball even better.
2-2 with 2 out. Garcia-Parra with the leadoff double at second base hasn't moved an inch since. Drilled. Oh, what a play by Jim Thome on the short hop. He'll take it unassisted. Thome saves a run, and the Red Sox are gone. We head to the bottom of the second with Justice, Baines, and Thome coming up. Indians looking for their first base runner against Pedro Martinez. And this Thursday night, that'd be tomorrow night, Colorado State and BYU. Colorado State ranked 24th in the country. Coverage begins at 7:30 Eastern Time with College Game Night, presented by Gateway. The first conference game in the new Mountain West Conference. It's tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern, right after College Game Night, presented by Gateway. David Justice will lead it off for the Tribe in the second inning, to be followed by Harold Baines and Jim Thome. David at .297 with 20 home runs and 86 RBIs. It has been a relatively quiet yet very productive season for Justice. His on-base percentage is .419. And he's managed to stay relatively healthy this year. One ball, one strike.
Well, since 1991, there have been 8 postseasons played, and David Justice has been, counting this year, in 8 consecutive postseasons.
Here's the 1-1. Justice whistles it foul past the first base coach, Brian Graham, who got out of harm's way. Jeff Newman, the third base coach. Home plate umpire tonight, as you take a look at Pedro Martinez, is Tim Welke. There he is. Justice fouls it off to the left side. So the Indians are working on Pedro. They haven't had any success to this point, but they're making him throw.
Well, in that brilliant performance against the Yankees the other night, it was either 119 or 120 pitches. I saw 2 different readouts, but if they can make him getting that 125, 130 pitch count through 7, they wouldn't have to deal with him the last 2 innings.
Here comes the 1-2 to Justice. Breaks his bat, dribbles it to short. Garcia-Parra throws him out. That bat shattered like balsa wood.
Nice concentration, though, by Nomar. He froze at first because that's your reaction when you see the bat shattered and flying, but then he came in, scooped it up, knew Justice does not have the great running speed, and just took his time and made the play. David didn't quite get the head out as Pedro threw an inside fastball.
Harold Baines at .309. You take a look at Nomar. Harold at 25 home runs, 95 RBIs, takes a fastball up and in.
That was Pedro's cut fastball at 93 miles an hour. That gets the lefties off the plate to set up the changeup away.
Harold came over from the Orioles the end of August for a couple of minor leaguers. Of course, the Indians also had their designs on Scott Erickson. That deal didn't work out, but Baines did. Harold wears number 33. Of course, he has worn number 3 throughout his career. In fact, he was one of the few players ever to wear his own retired number. And number 3 in Cleveland is already retired, Earl Averill. So Harold got the next best thing, a pair of 3s, 33.
Kind of like David Wells and Babe Ruth in New York.
David, no. 2 balls and a strike with 1 out. Big, slow breaking pitch. It just froze Harold up there. It's 2-2.
Well, let's see what Pedro's setting him up for. He threw 3 cut fastballs in a row in on his hands. He broke a bat, then the slow curveball. Let's see what this is.
It's a fastball, and it's fouled off to the left side, and that is Wilton Veras with the easy play, and there's 2 gone.
Yeah, we talked about the great 3 pitches Pedro has. He's actually added that 4th pitch, a cut fastball that he throws in on the left-handed hitter's hands. That naturally makes them want to try to speed up their bat, and then when he goes changeup, they've really had it. And Harold just weakly pops out to third base. Pedro's retired 5 in a row, but he's had to work to do it.
Jim Thome is the hitter. Jim at .277 with 29 home runs and 95 runs batted in. Jim has struck out 153 times this year and doesn't move an inch on that inside fastball. It's 1 ball and no strikes. And despite having struck out 153 times, Thomey's on base percentage is .426. Breaking ball, a strike.
He was the modern day Mickey Tettleton. Walk, strike out, and when you put it in play, put up big numbers.
No Fruit Loops he. Call, strike, it's 1 and 2.
Thomey far and away leads the American League in walks. He's the only man with over 100. So leading in walks and strikeouts.
114 walks, 153 strikeouts. It's 2 balls and 2 strikes. Richie Sexson is on deck. The Indians with the best record in the American League, and at this point they would have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Here's a 2-2. That is strikeout number 154 for Thomey. Strikeout number 3 on the night for Pedro Martinez. Scoreless after 2 for the Red Sox in the 3rd inning, and he drills a base hit into left field. So the rookie third baseman filling in for the injured John Valentin with that hit should be flirting with 300 now.
Well, certainly fulfilled the scouting report we had. A free swinger that almost invariably swings at the first pitch. Colon got it too close, and he kind of looped it out in the left field for a lead runner here for the Red Sox in the 3rd.
Trot Nixon, the 9th hitter, at 283, 13 home runs, 48 RBIs. Veras is a big man, but he can run, has very good speed. He's tried stealing twice, but he's been caught both times. But he runs the bases, going from 1st to 3rd exceptionally well. Fastball inside corner to Nixon. So Hurricane Floyd has postponed the Oakland at Baltimore game. And the A's and Orioles are supposed to play again there tomorrow. And the weather being what it is, they may not play again tomorrow either. And that could wreak havoc on the pennant race, especially with the A's, who trail the Red Sox by 3 games in the wild card race. And they would lose 2 games in the schedule, might have to play those 2 after the end of the regular season or on one of those off days down the stretch. Fickle finger of Floyd has certainly not done the A's any favor. Nixon pops it up in the infield, and that's Jim Thomey. One out, one on here in the 3rd.
No, Colon has flirted with the leadoff guy every inning. He went 3-0 on Offerman in the 1st, retired him. Nomar Garcia-Parra doubled to start the 2nd, and Veras singles to start the 3rd, but so far no advance by the runners.
Veras is a big fella. He's at 6'2", 225. And he got into a collision with Kent Merker a little over a week ago and trying to catch a foul ball. And Merker came out on the short end of that collision. Some cartilage damage in his ribs, and Merker placed on the disabled list yesterday. Told you Veras can run a bit. But Einar Diaz, after a slow start behind the plate and attempting to throw out runners this year, has really improved his game. Has a good, solid arm. And a pretty good lead from Veras. Doesn't go unnoticed by Colon.
Yeah, when Diaz took over, the first 15 runners that took off, 14 of them were safe. But since then, 41%. So he has stepped in. John Hart says that's one of the big reasons the youngsters like Diaz and Richie Sexson filling in for injured guys.
1 ball and no strikes to Jose Offerman, who flied to center field in his first at-bat. Offerman, who signed that 4-year, $26 million contract in the offseason. Never had a lot of power. But he drills one to deep center field. Way back. And gone. A home run. His 7th home run of the season. As if on cue, the Red Sox take a 2-0 lead on the line drive home run by Jose Offerman.
Well, Offerman was 4 for 4 last night, and remember, a little over a month ago, after going into the All-Star break cold and coming out ice cold, Jimmy Williams put him on the bench for 4 or 5 days, and people were wondering what's going on. But like we've said many times tonight, Jimmy Williams hasn't pushed many wrong buttons this year, and that ball cleared by about 10 feet.
Jose Offerman with his 7th home run of the season. That matches his career high. And Damon Buford takes a fastball at the knees. 0-1. Jose Offerman.
Well, you kind of figured it might be a matter of time with Bartolo Colon. We talked about how he threw Veritek a 2-1 curveball, but he's been getting behind quite a few hitters tonight. He got behind Offerman 2-1, and Jose was sitting all over the fastball.
And you don't want to give up 2 runs to Pedro Martinez. Call, strike 3. Buford is retired. That's the 3rd strikeout of the night for Colon.
Now, this is where Colon showed some maturity. There was a time in his career where a home run like that in a big game against Pedro Martinez would totally unhinge him. But he just said, okay, I gave up 2. I can't get it back. I got to go after the next hitter. There was the fastball, and Jose Offerman got it about thigh high and crushed it.
Brian Dahlback is the hitter. Dahlback struck out in his first at-bat. Brian's had a tough last month or so. The 0-1. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Always had a little bit of a long swing, and sometimes those 4A players like he was can catch up with that minor league pitching, but he shortened the stroke up a little bit, but he may have gotten tired. One theory that the swing gets longer when you get tired.
Here's the 1-1.
I know they thought that about Sean Green up in Toronto this year. He had that magnificent first half and was hot coming out of the All-Star break, and then they thought his swing got a little long, but he's back on track now.
Sean Casey also kind of hit a wall right around
August. And Jack McKeon set him down for 2 days, and he came back with a vengeance. Meanwhile, the Mets don't want to stop hitting in the top of the 9th out in Colorado.
Now leading Colorado 10-5. Fastball up and away. It's 3 balls and a strike to Dahlback. 2 out, 2 runs are in. On the home run by Jose Offerman. His 7th of the season. Garcia Parra on deck. And so Colon would just as soon do away with Dahlback here and now. Count goes full, 3-2.
Those things happen, too, when you're slumping. You finally get a favorable count, 3-1, and Colon made a great pitch on the outside corner. When you're going good, that 3-1 pitch is going to be right where you're bailing and looking to jack to right field.
3 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs, 2 runs in here in the 3rd inning. And Dahlback is struck out. Strikeout number 4 for Colon. But on the 2-run home run by Jose Offerman, the Red Sox strike first. Pedro Martinez picking up, relatively speaking, where he left off on Friday night. He has struck out 3 of the first 6 hitters he has faced. The Indians are still looking for their first base runner, and Richie Sexson leads off the bottom half of the 3rd. 6'7" Washingtonian takes a call strike. It's 0-1. Sexson with 30 home runs and 107 runs batted in. And when you consider he's got but 438 at-bats, I mean, he's got a 250 RBI percentage. Most guys would be happy with 250 batting average.
Well, Richie Sexson came up last year and did a good job, but he was ticked off this spring when the Indians went out and got Will Cordero. He said, don't I deserve a shot? Well, he's proving he deserves a shot.
The ball and 2 strikes. And then what does John Hart do with the trade deadline? Goes out and gets Harold Baines.
Well, one of the reasons he got Baines, 412 lifetime average against David Cohn, 316 against Roger Clemens. That was all done to take on the Yankees.
And Sexton is struck out. Strikeout number 4 for Pedro, and that's the first 7 hitters in a row he has faced. Now remember, on Friday night, Pedro retired the last 22 hitters he has faced. So now, 29 hitters in a row he has retired.
Well, he already pitched 9 perfect innings in his career, once with Montreal. Unfortunately, his teammates couldn't score. He won the game, but he gave up a hit in the 10th inning.
Tyler Houston getting the start tonight for the recuperating Travis Fryman. And I suspect that when Tyler saw his name on the batting card, realizing that he was facing Pedro Martinez, thought to himself, gee, thanks.
Well, with the play he made in the first inning, maybe Tyler said, I think I need to throw the leather tonight.
The dominating pitcher in Major League Baseball this year, Pedro Martinez. Opposing hitters are batting just .207 against him. The foul back up here. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
Well, a lot of pitchers do better against one side or the other. Maybe they have a lot of trouble with left-handed batters, but with that changeup Martinez has, he can neutralize the lefties as well.
1 and 2 with 1 out, bottom half of the 3rd. And Tyler Houston is strikeout victim number 5.
Well, Pedro making it look a little easier this inning because he has done it on 7 pitches. He had 37 pitches in the first 2 innings. You project that out over 9, that's 166. So he wasn't going to make anywhere close to 9 because the Red Sox aren't going to think about letting that arm get injured again. But now he's come out throwing nothing but strikes, 1 ball in the inning.
That was career strikeout number 1,500, and tonight he has struck out 5 of the first hitters he has faced. The Indians have yet to hit the ball out of the infield. Einar Diaz at 274 with 3 home runs and 32 RBIs. He has been one of the Indians' real unsung heroes this season. When you consider that Sandy Alomar was expected to be a pretty near everyday catcher. And here's Einar Diaz into center field, and that's off the glove of Damon Buford. And Diaz will hold at second base. First hit of the ball game for the Indians, a 2-out double off the glove of Damon Buford.
As close to spectacular as you can get, the effort by Damon Buford just off the glove. First ball, fastball, Einar Diaz went for it. That is a full extension, all-out effort by Damon Buford. Close but no cigar. Diaz breaks the string at 29 in a row, retired by Martinez over 2 games.
Damon Buford pretty near had the, forget the play of the day, play of the week. So with 2 out and Diaz at second base, it brings up Kenny Lofton. Lofton struck out to begin the game for the Indians back in the 1st. And Kenny gets out of the way of a fastball. 1 ball, no strikes.
Well, for whatever reason, Kenny Lofton has owned Pedro Martinez. He is 11 for 26 in his career. That's about .432.
Here comes the 1-0. And inside and high, 2 balls and no strikes. Interesting, is it? 2, 3, 4 years ago, Pedro Martinez was accused of being a headhunter. Now that he has become the dominating pitcher in the game, he merely works inside.
Well, and he works inside very effectively, too. That cut fastball is a pitch he's added the last couple of years, and Kenny Lofton, starting to approach the pitch, thinks it's a straight fastball, and it moves about 3 or 4 inches in on his hands. That's why he's ducking out of the way at the last second.
And at 90 miles an hour, it's a good idea. Here comes the 2-0. Kenny takes it in the dirt. 3 balls and no strikes.
Well, Pedro wasn't going to give in 2 balls, no strikes, and throw a fastball to Kenny Lofton. Pedro aware that Kenny's had good numbers against him.
In that Friday night masterpiece against the Yankees, Martinez hit Chuck Knobloch to begin the game and then did not walk a batter. And a one-hopper to third base. Wilton Veras throws across the diamond. The inning is over. No runs, a hit, and a man left. Pedro's human after all. He's actually given up a hit. Making his presence felt down the stretch for the Astros.
Well, the Astros with 12 in a row, and Cincinnati's won 10 of 12 and has lost 2 games in the standings. That is some kind of race over there in the Central.
Let's not forget the Mets and the Braves. Mets are leading Colorado 10-5 in the 9th inning. Nomar Garciaparra leading off for the Red Sox. 1 ball, no strikes. Talking to one of the Cleveland reporters today before the game, and he's saying, what's it like in the outside world where they're real pennant races? It's been a charmed existence here in Cleveland over the past 5 years. Hard slider, 1 ball, 1 strike.
Well, they've been good, but only 1 time in the last 5 years has any team in the division played over 500 ball, the White Sox in '96.
Here comes the 1-1. Ball and 2 strikes. Mentioned a bit earlier that the Red Sox, of course, trail the Yankees by 3.5 games in the American League East. And the last time the Indians had but a 3.5 game lead was April 28th. And they come into the game tonight leading the White Sox by 25.5 games. I mean, we're talking light years. Nomar pops it foul.
And this with a club that has had 16 different guys on the disabled list, a total of 22 times, 850 man games missed, and still 25.5 games ahead of the pack. They have to win 11 of the last 17, including tonight, to reach Mike Hargrove's goal of 100. But if they don't, they've got plenty of built-in excuses with all the injuries they've had.
But you think of the clubs that have succeeded this year. Houston with all the injuries they've had. Atlanta with the key injuries that they have had. Cleveland here. You go the other side of the coin, then you have Anaheim. And their troubles, the first excuse you hear from the Anaheim clubhouse is we had all these injuries. Well, there are a lot of teams that did and have succeeded. Garciaparra at 1 and 2 with Troy O'Leary on deck and Scott Hatterberg to follow.
Well, all of those clubs have had guys that have stepped up. Obviously, we talked about Richie Sexton and Einar Diaz, 2 guys for Cleveland. Kevin Millwood, jumping into the fray, has become quietly Atlanta's best pitcher. Houston, Jose Lima and Mike Hampton, 20-win seasons. They've had a lot of heroes, guys that have stepped up when guys went down.
Now again, the 1-2 to Garciaparra. Popped up in the infield, and Jim Thome takes charge. The Mets have just beaten the Rockies 10-5.
Puts a little heat on the Braves. They'll be playing the second half of our doubleheader coming up tonight on ESPN2. John Smoltz scheduled to go for Atlanta against Matt Clement.
And it keeps the heat on Cincinnati in the race for the wild card. Cincinnati can't catch a break. Cincinnati keeps winning, but so do the Braves, so do the Astros, and so do the Mets. 1 out, nobody on. Troy O'Leary, who popped to second base in his first at-bat. Troy at 287, 27 home runs, 99 runs batted in.
Well, it's either the fact, Charlie, that some teams have stepped up magnificently, or that the bottom feeders, the bad teams, have just been horrible, because both the Astros and Reds have been playing the bad teams lately.
An easy play for Jim Thome. And 2 out, nobody on. Now let's go back to the studio. Bill Peto's got an update for us. Billy.
All right, Charlie, the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Carlos Delgado against Andy Pettitte with the Blue Jays down 1-0 here in the 4th. And this is a well-hit ball, extremely high. The question, would it be deep enough? And it was. Delgado now 44 home runs, all tied up at 1 in the bottom of the 4th.
What a crucial game for the Blue Jays tonight after that painful lost last night when the Yankees scored 4 in the 8th and 5 in the 9th. And for that young Blue Jay team, if they can rebound tonight, they ain't dead yet.
And think how tough Oakland has handled this 8-3 road trip of the Boston Red Sox.
Scott Hatterberg, a ball and a strike.
I mean, I don't think even the Red Sox, in their wildest imagination, even though they knew Pedro was going to get 3 starts on the trip, thought they could go 9-3 through Seattle, Oakland, New York, and Cleveland. But if they win tonight, that's exactly what they'll have done.
And the Red Sox head home after the game tonight. 1 ball and 2 strikes. And with the bad weather moving up the eastern seaboard, Red Sox may not necessarily be playing right away. They've already postponed the game in Baltimore tonight. And Oakland's supposed to play at Baltimore tomorrow. And a call, strike 3. And for Bartolo Colon, strikeout number 5. And after 3 1/2, it's the Red Sox leading the Indians 2-0. Vizquel, Robbie Alomar, and David Justice due up against Pedro Martinez. Omar Vizquel to lead it off for the Indians in the home half of the 4th, to be followed by Roberto Alomar and David Justice against Pedro Martinez, who just delivered his 50th pitch of the ball game. 1 ball and no strikes. Martinez to this point, no runs and a hit, has struck out 5 and hasn't walked anybody. Here comes the 1-0. 1 ball and 1 strike to Omar Vizquel, who yesterday introduced his own clothing line here in Cleveland. Talking to Omar before the game, he said, you know, everybody's got candy bars and cereal. Not everybody's got clothing lines. He said, oh yeah, Michael Jordan has sneakers. I've got clothes.
He dresses well, too.
This ain't Omar the tent maker either.
No, I mean, they're not conservative clothes.
No.
But they are not what you would call garish either. They are a lot of vivid colors.
Oh, you're too kind.
Wild colors. Pastels.
Yes. You'd look great. 2 balls, 2 strikes, nobody out to Omar Vizquel leading off the bottom of the 4th. And Omar, as he did in his first at-bat when he forced Martinez to throw 10 pitches, is working on the count again. It's 2-2. What a year Vizquel has turned in. Takes a ball outside, 3-2. At .328, 4 home runs, 64 RBIs, 37 stolen bases. And he is an afterthought when you talk about Jeter and Garcia-Parra and Alex Rodriguez.
Made the All-Star team, though.
Sure did. 2nd year in a row.
He didn't think he was going to.
Here comes the 3-2. Slashed foul. Of course, that was in large part due to the injury in the first half of the year to Alex Rodriguez.
Right. You know, Vizquel had a 10-pitch at bat against Pedro the first time up. This is going to be the 8th offering he's seeing. So if they get Pedro Martinez out of here, maybe after 7, even though Omar Vizquel may not have any hits, you got to give a tip of the cap to him how hard he's battled at the plate.
Well, it's a line drive, ticking it up the gap and going into deep right center field, and Vizquel has an easy leadoff double. Now let's go to Bill Pito. He's got an update for us. Bill?
Speaking of doubles, Charlie, in the 4th inning, we showed you Carlos Delgado going deep for the Jays to tie it at 1. Still batting here in the 4th. Jose Cruz Jr. goes the other way, goes all the way to the wall. That drives in Tony Batista. Round rule double for Jose Cruz Jr. Now 2-1 Toronto in the bottom of the 4th.
Well, Jose Cruz Jr., who has been a bitter disappointment since his arrival in Toronto, comes up big with that double over the wall, 1 hopper, and that gives Toronto the 2-1 lead. Robbie Alomar, a strikeout victim in his first at-bat. Squares to bunt. Oh, that's a beauty. And he's going to beat it. Is there any chink in Robbie Alomar's game? There's nothing he can't do. A perfectly executed drag bunt.
Well, we mentioned the difficulties Alomar's had against Pedro. 0 for 14, so he figured about time to try something different. Got a fastball, pulled it past the pitcher. Once that happened, with Alomar's speed and Daubach having to come in and get it, no chance. Pedro tried to bend over and get it. That's the only chance he had, was to bend over and then race Alomar to the bag.
Well, this is the first legitimate scoring threat for the Indians here in the bottom half of the fourth. The leadoff double to Vizquel, the drag bunt by Alomar. Runners at the corners, nobody out. David Justice, who bounced to shortstop in his first at-bat. The outfield is straight away, but Garcia Parra just 10 steps to the left field side of second base. So there's a big hole between short and third.
Well, Pedro's got his work cut out for him. He started out Justice with that cutter on the hands once again. Martinez, in 26 starts this year, has allowed more than 2 runs only 5 times. But the Indians know this is going to be one of those rare opportunities to do some damage.
The Indians come into the game with 899 runs scored this season. Call strike on the outside edge at 84 miles an hour.
So Pedro is looking for the strikeout here and then wants to get the double play ball with Baines due next.
0-2 to Justice. A .296 hitter, 20 home runs, 86 runs batted in. Justice has bounced into 13 double plays this year. The 0-2 just stays alive.
What a great pitch by Martinez. A changeup, jumping at the hitter, the great arm speed, diving down and away, and somehow Justice was able to get just a little piece of it. Look at that ball diving, and Justice just a little piece. Now Pedro sees that. He's going, how did Justice hit that? You figure he's got to come back with something on the fist now, because he figures Justice is leaning across and protecting.
Pitch outside, throw inside. He goes outside and just misses.
Went changeup away again. He also uses the changeup to set up the gas or the cutter inside. So he's gone away twice. You figure he's not going to go to the same area 3 consecutive times.
And Justice, who has not had a whole lot of success in his career against Pedro Martinez, but then again, few have. Pedro Martinez, who barely weighs 170 pounds. The 1-2. Strikeout number 6 for Pedro Martinez.
Well, he went to the curveball. He threw 2 changeups away and then the hook. Justice probably thinking he had to come back inside, but he didn't. He went off speed again and watched Justice be out in front of this pitch, swinging with one hand.
When you're a hitter facing Pedro Martinez, with the change of speed, the change of direction, in, out, up, down, fastball, curve, changeup. It's guesswork.
Yeah, well, most major league hitters go to the plate with the idea in every at-bat they're going to get at least 1 pitch to hit. Pedro plants it in their mind that they may not. And to try to figure out which of the 4 deliveries to try to sit on, the fastball, the cutter, the curve, or the changeup, you only have a 25% chance of guessing right, and even then you might not hit it.
Harold Baines, who fouled out in his first at-bat. Missing inside, 1 ball, no strikes. Baines has bounced into 14 double plays.
A little surprised that maybe Robbie Alomar hasn't thought about trying to steal here. He's got the speed. Pedro has a rather high leg kick, but he hasn't really offered yet.
Vizquel fakes halfway down third base. Martinez completely ignores him. Alomar goes, and there will be no throw, as Veritek never did get a handle on it. So it's second and third and 1 out. And with Jim Thome on deck, it's pick your poison time.
Well, with nobody out, justice. I think Alomar wanted to give him that hole on the right side with Brian Daubach holding against him. It created a big hole. But with Baines, a double play candidate, I think Robbie wanted to eliminate that possibility.
The 1-1 to Harold is inside, 2 balls and a strike.
I think this is definitely a case where Pedro is going to make Harold Baines hit his pitch. He feels in his own mind he can strike out Thome. And he thinks Harold Baines, a great RBI man, is going to have to hit his pitch. I don't think he goes fastball here 2-0.
Tying run in scoring position. Grounded into the hole. Garciaparra can't make the play. A run scores. Alomar holds at second. Baines is safe at first.
Well, that was just smart hitting by Harold Baines. He knew Pedro wasn't going to give in to him, so he went away with that changeup and hit it to the hole. That's just a great veteran hitter knowing the situation. Nomar probably feels he should have come up with that. They have scored that a hit, I believe. No, take it back. Scored it in there.
First and second. And Jim Thome is the hitter.
Baines will get an RBI. Vizquel was coming on the contact. That's a tough error. Play that Garciaparra should have made, but still, when you go backhand, still a tough error.
That is the 900th run scored by the Cleveland Indians this year. The Indians on a pace to score over 1,000 runs. Way outside.
You know, Pedro obviously not as sharp as he was on Friday night, but there aren't too many pitchers that are going to have back-to-back efforts like that jewel he threw in New York.
In 1996, the Indians set a franchise record with 952 runs. They're going to smash that record to smithereens. Big, slow breaking ball. 3 balls, no strikes.
Well, I bet Mike Hargrove green lights Jim Thome here, but I also bet Pedro Martinez doesn't throw a fastball down the middle.
Interestingly, Thome has only bounced into 5 double plays all year. He has walked 114 times and has been struck out 154. Here's a 3-0. He got the green light.
Threw the cutter in on the hands. Thome thought it was a straight fastball and got tied up a little bit. But Mike Hargrove, knowing that Richie Sexton, a right-handed batter on deck, and Thome, a good cripple hitter with a lot of power. He loves to hit 3-1, 2-0, let him go 3-0. But Pedro made a good pitch on his hands.
So it's 3-1 to Thome with Sexton on deck. Alomar at second, Baines at first. 3-2.
Pedro knows he could be pitching for his ball game right here. He got the 2-run lead, Offerman, with the big home run. Now they've gotten 1 back and have great speed at second base in Alomar.
Jim Thome on a pace this year to hit 33 home runs and knock in 107. For him, it's an off year. Here's the 3-2. Big, slow breaking ball, and the bases are loaded. That is the first walk of the game. And it brings up Richie Sexton.
Joe Kerrigan, pitching coach, going to come out and have a little conversation with Pedro right now. The pitch count starting to get up there. He went with a curveball to Thome 3-2, but Jim spotted the rotation and laid off it.
As Joe Kerrigan talks to his battery. A reminder, immediately after our game, got the Braves and the Padres. John Smoltz, Ryan Clement, Bob Carpenter, Rick Sutcliffe will have the call of that game for you as soon as we are done. And this ESPN2 Wednesday night doubleheader. As the season winds down, we are beefing it up. At third base, Roberto Alomar. At second base, Harold Baines. Jim Thome at first base. And Richie Sexson is the hitter. Sexson just a .255 hitter with runners in scoring position this season.
Richie Sexson has a little hole upstairs, and Pedro fed him a high fastball. As Sexson becomes a more mature hitter, he'll learn to lay off that high gas.
No balls and a strike. Swing and a miss. No balls and 2 strikes.
Difference between 96 miles an hour up there and 96 miles an hour at the thighs. Sexson can hit the 96 at the thighs. He can't touch that gas upstairs.
Sexson has a grand slam home run this year. He's 8 for 25 with the bases loaded. And it's hit into short center field. Damon Buford makes the catch. Here comes Alomar. Here comes the throw, and he is safe. On the sacrifice fly by Richie Sexson. Wasn't hit all that deeply. Alomar legs home the tying run.
I didn't think Damon Buford did a good job of setting up to throw that ball. I think he should have taken his crow hop while he was getting it. Now he takes 2 extra steps and makes a good throw. And he also caught it with one hand. You catch the ball with 2 hands, you save about 0.4 of a second on the transfer. Those little split seconds make the difference. 2 things fundamentally wrong, I thought, the way he played that. And that was just enough for Alomar to score.
And did you see the slide by Robbie Alomar? Passing by and just touches the plate with his hand, avoiding the tag of Jason Varitek. So Robbie Alomar, who began or continued this rally with a perfectly placed drag bunt, scores a tying run on a pretty slide. Here's the 0-1 to Tyler Houston. And that is a foul ball. And that bat is just shattered. That's the second bat that Pedro Martinez has absolutely shattered.
Well,
David Justice lost his bat in the first at-bat.
In on the hands, and Tyler not left with much. Couldn't even, that wouldn't even be kindling for a good winter fire, what was left in his hands.
So it's 0-2 to Houston. Painter Diaz on deck. 2 runs are in. Harold Baines is at second base. Jim Thome is at first. And the Indians and Red Sox are tied at 2. And the 0-2 to Houston. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Tyler and his former teammate Rod Beck got a chance to spend some time with one another this week here in Cleveland. Both exited Chicago at the trade deadline and then beyond. And Tyler Houston is struck out. That is strikeout number 7 for Pedro Martinez. And with the score tied at 2-2 here in Cleveland, we're going to move a couple of 100 miles south to Cincinnati, where Sammy Sosa is coming to the plate. It's in the air, and that's about the time the Indians really begin to get serious about their business. It has gotten to the point here in Cleveland with their enormous success during the regular season. A lead of 25.5 games at Jacobs Field has been reanointed the spring training home of the Cleveland Indians. Jason Varitek, first ball swinging here in the top half of the 5th. And 1 out and nobody on. So Tyler Houston has played a solid defensive third base tonight, filling in for the recuperating Travis Fryman. Wilton Veras is now the hitter. Veras with a leadoff single back in the third inning, and he would come around to score on Jose Offerman's 7th home run of the year. We're tied at 2. The Red Sox with 2 in the top of the third. The Indians respond with 2 in the bottom of the fourth. And Bartolo Colon fires a fastball at 95 miles an hour, but misses high and away. Veras hitting .306, and he has come up and filled in ably for the injured John Valentin, who's got tendonitis in the knee. 2-0. It was Veras who got into a collision with Kent Merker, chasing after a foul ball the other day, and landed Merker on the disabled list with cartilage damage in his ribcage area. 3 balls and no strikes to Veras, with Trot Nixon on deck. Each team with 3 hits and 2 runs. The Red Sox have made an error. Colon has struck out 5. And that is his first walk of the night. And a reminder, this Saturday at high noon, West Virginia at Maryland, where it's been raining and is going to rain a whole lot more before it lets up. Don Nehlen's Mountaineers are led by Mark Bolger, one of the nation's top quarterbacks. The Terps have a top-notch tailback in Lamont Jordan. And then at 7 Eastern, Wake Forest at Virginia. Virginia hopes to showcase last year's ACC rushing leader, tailback Tommy Jones. One ball and no strikes to Trot Nixon. Trot popped to third base in his first at-bat. Offerman is on deck. Veras, short lead, but good speed. Call strike, 1-1. Pedro Martinez to this point, given up 2 runs and now 4 hits. They have changed the play on Nomar Garcia-Parra. They initially called it an error to a base hit. And so he's given up 2 runs and 4 hits, and he has struck out 6 to this point and walked 1. 1 ball, 1 strike, and 1 out.
Well, I agree with the decision because it was a difficult chance. Again, Nomar probably thinks he should have had it, but anytime a player has to go backhand and he's not short-arming a ball, you actually penalize a player for trying to make a good play if you call those kind of plays errors.
2-1 with 1 out. On a cool night in Cleveland, temperature is expected to get into the 50s before the night is over.
Well, we built this, and everybody in America built this as a great pitching matchup tonight, but both guys not quite on their A game. Colon's been behind an awful lot of hitters. Pedro hasn't been quite as sharp. His pitch count is high. He's given up 2 runs already. They're still great, but they're not quite on their top game tonight.
The 3-1. Back-to-back walks. And Phil Regan, the old vulture, is on his way out for a conversation on the hill with his young fireballing Bartolo Colon.
Well, I think what the message is going to be to Colon, get ahead of the hitters. Then you don't have to be so predictable in your pitch selection. Jose Offerman coming up. Last time he was up on a 2-1 count was looking fastball, got it and sent it into the Indians bullpen in deep right center field.
Mike Hargrove, who is universally respected around baseball except by the fans in Cleveland. This is a guy, all he does is win.
Well, it's the same thing down in Atlanta. Bobby Cox has enormous respect in baseball, and you listen to the talk shows down in Atlanta, and you'd think he's an idiot. Bobby Cox is a great manager. His players and coaches absolutely adore him, and that's the most important thing. They go out and play hard for it.
And what a job both of them have done this year, considering all the injuries that their respective teams have had to deal with. First and second, 1 out, and Jose Offerman, who hit a line drive home run into the right center field bullpen occupied by the Indians. Over 400 feet, and it was a line drive shot. That was back in the 3rd inning. And so Colon heeds the advice of Phil Regan and gets ahead 0-1. Offerman with his 7th home run and his 63rd and 64th RBIs of the season in his last at-bat. First and second and 1 out. No balls and 2 strikes. 98.
Yeah, along those lines, I once read a quote about geniuses in baseball, and they said, too bad everybody who's an expert on baseball is cutting hair and driving taxi cabs.
Sounds like something Jim Fry might have said at one time or another.
Or Lee Elia.
That's right.
In Chicago.
That's right. 0-2. And Offerman fouls it down the left field line. 100 miles an hour. I told you about that showdown that Colon had with Mo Vaughn last month. 3 pitches in a row, 101, 102, and 103. It finally struck him out.
Putting a little gas on the baseball. But if that's the only pitch you can get over, major league hitters can make some adjustments. They still aren't going to light you up, but at least they can make contact, foul pitches off. If you can change speeds like Pedro Martinez does with that 95-mile-an-hour fastball, then you got something.
0-2 with 1 out. Vera's leading off second. Trot Nixon off first. We're tied at 2. And Offerman continues to battle.
Another 100-mile-an-hour fastball from Bartolo Colon. A very defensive swing by Jose Offerman. And Pedro is thinking about the 2-run lead it got away. And Colon is thinking, hey, my teammates got me back in this. Now I cannot give up the lead right after they've scored 2 runs.
Pedro is 27 years old. Somehow you think he's about 45 or so it seems. Bartolo Colon is just 24. But Pedro befriended Bartolo in Dominican Winter League ball about 4 or 5 years ago. Here comes the 0-2 to Offerman. And again, Jose stays alive. A good at-bat.
Well, Offerman just trying to protect the plate, put it in play somewhere. But that's the difference. Right now, he's got Offerman totally on the defensive. Where last time, when the count was 2-1, Offerman was on the offensive looking for a fastball to pull.
In his career, Bartolo Colon is just 1 in 5 lifetime against the Red Sox. Conversely, Pedro is 4-0 against the Indians. No balls and 2 strikes and 1 out. And now Enter Diaz going out for another conversation as the top half of the 5th inning has come to a grinding halt.
Yeah, you thought maybe with these 2 pitchers we might have a National League type game, but this one is starting to slow to a snail's pace. When Cleveland and Boston, a couple of teams that can put some points on the board and take a lot of pitches, and all of a sudden you're looking at the 3.5-hour marathon or worse.
Jason Varitek led off the inning in the very first pitch, bouncing to third base. But back-to-back walks by Veras and Trot Nixon. And now the 0-2 count to Jose Offerman, who keeps fouling them off. In the dirt. And the runners will advance to second and third. Likely to be a wild pitch.
Well, they went to the breaking ball after the discussion. Nothing wrong with that. But I think Bartolo tried to make it too perfect, and that ball hit just behind the plate and snuck under Diaz's glove, and wild pitch, and 2 runners move up.
And so the Indians, who tied the score with 2 runs in the bottom of the 4th, now on the verge of giving some of those runs back. Second and third, 1 out. 1 and 2 to Offerman. Damon Buford is on deck. So a strikeout here by Colon would be a premium. And now Offerman steps out. The Yankees and Blue Jays are now tied at 4, playing in the 5th inning at Skydome. And the 1-2 to Offerman. Ground ball to short. That will score a run. Vizquel will throw out Offerman. Veras scores. Trot Nixon goes to 3rd. There's 2 out. And now let's go to Bill Pedro. He's got an update for us. Billy?
Okay, Charlie, you were talking about the Yanks in Toronto being tied. Well, it was 4-1 when the Yankees came up in the 5th inning, and Tino Martinez solo home run his 25th. That made it 4-2. Yanks added another to make it 4-3, and then Joe Girardi passed a drawn-in Tony Batista. Ricky Lede scores, and that's how we are tied now at 4 in the top of the 6th.
Thank you, Bill. And Damon Buford is the hitter, as the Red Sox now have a 3-2 lead, and Buford takes a ball down and away. Damon tonight is 0 for 2. He is one of 5 Bartolo Colon strikeout victims. Brian Daubach is on deck. That fastball had some mustard. 98 miles an hour, 1-1. Colon making his 3rd appearance this season against Pedro Martinez. And is 0-1 with a 2.70 ERA against Pedro. Here comes the 1-1. Swing and a miss, 1-2. So Colon is the likely opening game postseason starter for the Indians. They keep looking for that big ace, and apparently it is Bartolo Colon, and that has been the criticism of these Indians over the years. They haven't had that real legitimate stopper. But Colon has had an outstanding second half of the season. Foul back up here.
Charlie, in 1995, the first year the Indians went to postseason, they played the Red Sox in the division series. They won game 1 of that series. In fact, they swept that series. But since then, they've played 8 postseason series, and they've gone 0-1 in the first game in those 8 series. And that's been the one thing. You know, even if you've got a great ace, you can't expect to go 8-0. But, you know, 3-5, 4-4 wouldn't be too bad compared to 0-8.
You can't be playing come from behind, especially in those short series. And that has been part of the Indians' undoing. Top to 3rd. Tyler Houston throws out Damon Buford, but the Red Sox get the lead with a run in the top of the 5th. Hader Diaz, Kenny Lofton, and Omar Vizquel. Indians in the home half of the 5th. The Red Sox with the lead with a run in the top half of the 5th inning. Diaz tonight, 1 for 1, a single into center field. And what a pleasant surprise he has been for the Tribe this year, especially when you consider that Sandy Alomar missed all that time having that knee surgery. They didn't know what they were going to get in Hader Diaz. And he fouls it back up here. You're not as quick as you used to be, compadre.
Yeah, I am, because, you know, it was over near the monitor, and if it gets near the monitor, I'm not going to make a play because I get my hand crushed. If it's straight at me or at you, I'll save you. But if it's going to hit the monitor, I'm bailing.
You were bailing, just as Diaz was on that fastball. It's 1-1.
Now, Pedro said, okay, you doubled last time on the first pitch. You had a good hack there. I think I'm going to back you up just a little bit.
Compared to Friday night, Pedro's got an off night going. And Diaz loses his bat and fouls it back. You know, Hader Diaz was signed by the Indians as a non-drafted free agent back in 1990. And he began the year with 56 big league at-bats. So what does he do in his first full season with the Tribe? Plays 110 games. Hitting .276, and he's hit .323 with runners in scoring position. Now 2-2.
Charlie, you and I did a Sunday night radio game down in Texas earlier this year, and after the game ran into Sandy Alomar and his shadow. He does everything with Einar Diaz. He is his mentor, and Sandy is very proud of this young kid from the Dominican Republic.
Oh, wasn't that nasty? That should be outlawed in most states. That's strikeout number 8.
I'm sitting at least 150 feet from the field, and my knees buckled. And so did Diaz.
The 8th strikeout of the game. Longtime trainer Jimmy Warfield. Now Kenny Lofton. Kenny is nothing for 2. He's been struck out. Nothing in 1. Only Omar Vizquel and Harold Baines have not been struck out by Martinez to this point.
A lot of brouhaha here last night about the Red Sox thinking the Indians were using a camera in center field to steal signs, and Jimmy Williams insisted they turn the camera off. He thought too many of the Indian hitters were sitting on every pitch. They said somebody in the Indians dugout was whistling when a fastball was coming, so I don't think they have that camera on tonight.
Ground ball to second base. Jose Offerman. 2 gone. They could be monitoring Pedro Martinez with the Hubble telescope tonight. And there you see it all covered up. And it wouldn't do him any good.
Well, the Indians claim they use it as a scouting tool. And maybe, but the Red Sox felt that it was feeding a monitor at the end of the Indians' dugout, and that certain people were whistling Dixie when fastballs were coming. So the Indians have it totally covered up tonight to refrain from any accusations.
They could be whistling Hey Jude, and they're not going to be hitting Pedro Martinez. Omar Vizquel with a base hit. Omar tonight is 2 for 3.
Now, Omar has had the best at bats all night long against Pedro Martinez. A 10-pitch at bat in the first inning before bouncing out. He had an 8-pitch at bat before the double, and now he has a single. Pedro a little late getting the glove up there. Wouldn't be surprised if the Indians activate the running game. Vizquel now tied with Robbie Alomar. They both have 37 stolen bases. Shannon Stewart of Toronto with 37. Those are the top 3 in the American League.
Vizquel has been caught 8 times in 45 tries. And Robbie finds a hole into right field. Vizquel will stay put. First and second. So a mini rally with 2 out.
Well, after Alomar has gone 0 for 14 against Pedro, he beats out a drag bunt, and then he fists one through the right side. That's the advantage of the left-handed batter has. Wherever a runner's on first, you get a much bigger hole to drive the ball through.
David Justice is nothing for 2 tonight. Justice is now 6 for 34 a lifetime against Pedro, as Joe Kerrigan and Jimmy Williams look on from the first base dugout. 0-1 to Justice.
Well, neither pitcher is on a pace to go much past 7 innings tonight. And again, pitch count is going to be very important. Colon, they are going to make sure he is well rested for postseason. And for the Red Sox, they know any chance they have in postseason lies in the right arm of the man on the mound tonight.
No balls, 1 strike. No balls and 2 strikes to David Justice. Justice struck out in his last at-bat. Harold Baines is on deck.
The question du jour for the evening for Jimmy Williams is, who would be his 8th inning guy? You figure he would go to Rod Beck after Derek Lowe pitched 3 1/3 innings yesterday. But if Pedro runs out of gas after 7, he's got to have somebody pitch the 8th.
Vizquel at second, Alomar at first, 0-2, 2 out, bottom half of the 5th. Red Sox 3-2. just missing 1 and 2.
Of course, a lot of that will be dependent on what part of the order they're in. If it happened to be Justice, Baines, and Tomei, you could bet we would see Real Cormier, who has pitched very well of late.
Jason Varitek talked to him before the game about Pedro's performance on Friday night. And he said it was just fun to catch. There was only one pitch the whole night that didn't go where it was supposed to, and that was the Chili Davis home run. Everything else was right on target. And he struck out 17, didn't walk anybody. Here's the 1-2, 2 and 2.
Well, last time up, and Pedro has a long memory, and he knows these hitters. Justice fouled off 2 very tough changeups away. And then he got him on a curveball. Let's see what he works to here. He just busted him off the plate with a cutter.
High pitch count with 2 out here in the bottom half of the 5th. Bernie Williams, sore shoulder and all, has just hit a 2-run home run and given the Yankees a 6-4 lead in Toronto, where the Blue Jays led in that game 4-1. 2 and 2 to Justice. 3 and 2, and so the runners will be moving. Vizquel and Alomar both can run with the wind. Will be getting the head start.
One of the differences for Pedro tonight is he has not had as good a command with that changeup. It started down and away out of the strike zone, so the left-handed hitters haven't been as tempted.
3 and 2. Vizquel with the head start from second. Alomar from first. The pitch. Justice is struck out. Strikeout number 9 for Pedro Martinez. And after 5, the Red Sox lead by 1. Team that squandered the big league last night, and they have squandered another lead tonight. 98 pitches to this point for Pedro Martinez, and that was strikeout number 9. Getting David Justice as it just dropped off the table. Justice has been struck out twice tonight by Pedro. But 98 pitches through 5 innings. He's worked a lot. Brian Daubach to lead it off for the Red Sox in the top half of the 6th inning. Daubach has been struck out twice by Bartolo Colon. Colon has thrown 85 pitches through the first 5 innings. And Daubach quickly behind, no balls and 2 strikes.
Isn't it amazing the adjustments Pedro makes? He doesn't have command of the changeup, so he went to the curveball. That's 2 times in a row he struck out Justice on hooks.
Can't go in the front door or go in the side door. Side door doesn't work, take the back door. Pedro Martinez and his 24-year-old friend and fellow Dominican Bartolo Colon. And Daubach, his late season swoon continues. Drills it foul. Is still 0-2. Garcia Parra on deck and Troy O'Leary to follow.
Well, another bat bites the dust as Colon got in on Daubach. Daubach last year, 35 homers, 120 plus RBIs, and got shown the door
By the Marlins.
Who haven't exactly had a lot of productivity out of first base this year.
I was talking to Billy Wagner the other day, and he was saying the 2 toughest teams for him to pitch against were the Mets and the Marlins. Here's the 0-2, 1 and 2.
We talked to Leo Mazzoni a lot. We've had the Braves quite a bit recently, and the thing that disturbs Leo more than anything is they got to finish their season with Florida, and he said Florida plays us so tough, it's unbelievable.
1 ball and 2 strikes to Brian Daubach. 2 balls and 2 strikes. But Daubach is one of the reasons why the Red Sox are where they are. Talking with Lee Thomas, their assistant general manager, before the game. And you take a look at their starting 9 night in and night out, and you wonder how in the world the Red Sox are 83 and 62. Daubach fouls it.
Well, you kind of figure you're going to see Nomar every night when he's healthy. O'Leary, 99% of the time. Veritek has been their regular catcher, and John Valentin when he's healthy. That's 4 guys, but everybody else is kind of on rotation.
But you think of what Dan Duquette, as you take a look at Nomar Garciaparra. Dan Duquette, who has taken a world of heat in Boston since his arrival there. But to give him his due, Jeff Reardon's high school catcher back in Massachusetts was Dan Duquette. Swing and a miss, and Dahlback is struck out for the 3rd time tonight. And that is strikeout number 6 for Bartolo Colon.
Well, everybody has their own managerial philosophy. And you take a look at the pitch as Dahlback has the silver sombrero. Again, Colon painting him up on the outside corner. Duquette's philosophy is spend money where you need to on a few stars, but the rest of my guys, I want to be hungry and playing for contracts every year. And so far, it's worked pretty well in Boston.
Garciaparra takes a ball outside. But some of the things that Duquette has done going against the grain. First and foremost, hiring Jimmy Williams. Still wondering whatever happened to the second M in his first name.
There was another guy named Jimmy Williams, and maybe just to avoid confusion, another guy that managed in the minor leagues for a long time.
So he hires Jimmy Williams, not necessarily a popular choice at the time. And Williams has just done a magnificent job for the Sox this year. Signs Jose Offerman for the 4 years and $26 million. Everybody thought he was crazy. Brian Dahlback for $230,000. Roughly half of what Kevin Brown makes per appearance for the Dodgers.
Well, roughly $8.7 million less than Mo Vaughn makes, too.
So between Offerman and Dahlback, they have certainly put up the numbers. A Baltimore chop. Tyler Houston can't make the play. That's the second hit of the night for Garciaparra. 1-out infield hit.
Right down off the plate and the high kangaroo hop. Nomar slipped a little bit going out of the box, and that gave Houston an outside shot at it. But he couldn't come up with a play, and it goes as a hit. Off home plate, you see Nomar going down on one hand as he started to slip, but that ball took kind of a right turn on Tyler Houston.
You know, he signed Nomar Garciaparra to a 5-year contract extension to bypass arbitration. 5 years for $23 million, which will turn out in the long run to be a bargain. O'Leary signs a 4-year deal for a little less than 15. Ground ball down the first base line, nothing in 1. Of course, the Rod Beck trade may turn out to be a terrific trade, not for this year, but next year and beyond, because Beck looks like he's beginning to get that elbow strength back. And Pedro, 6 years and $75 million. So all of these moves that at first were somewhat questioned, up to and including paying Pedro that kind of dough, have really turned out and turned the Red Sox into an unlikely winning team this year. 1-1.
Well, you figured John Valentin's had a subpar year by his standards. He's on the DL right now. They have gotten very little offense out of center field, Darren Lewis and Damon Buford, but they're both gifted defensively. And Trot Nixon, even though he's been coming on of late, he still has less than 45 RBIs. So they're not getting a lot of offensive productivity out of center field, right field, and Valentin not up to his usual standards.
Here comes the 1-1 to O'Leary. High fly ball to deep left center field. Richie Sexton makes the catch. That's 2 out. And I remember when we were doing that Mariner-Red Sox game back in May when Pedro struck out a mere 15. Between innings, ran into Dan Duquette. Yeah, we were talking. And at that point, through about 4 or 5 innings, Pedro had struck out 9 or 10. And I said half-heartedly, whoever thought that 6 years and $75 million would be a bargain. Without missing a beat, Duquette said, I did. And to this point, he's been on target. 2 out. And Scott Hatteberg, who has struck out in each of his first 2 plate appearances tonight. Scott now hitting just .200. Somewhat of a surprise starter as the designated hitter tonight. And that Reggie Jefferson historically has handled Bartolo Colon pretty well. Jefferson, the left-handed DH.
Just kind of have a feeling the way that Jimmy Williams has been pushing the right buttons that Hatteberg's going to do something before the night's over.
That was Colon's 100th pitch of the night. 1 ball, no strikes, and 2 out. Red Sox with the 3-2 lead. 1-1. And the Red Sox have finished their series for the season with the Yankees and won 8 of the 12.
Red Sox are 19 and 13 against the top 3 teams, the division leaders, Cleveland, Texas, and New York. The other side of the coin, the Indians, against the 3 teams that figure to face them in the playoffs, they're 9 and 18 against them.
No source of, or a great source of concern in Cleveland.
I mean, that doesn't really mean anything. We've seen cases, 1983, the Dodgers beat the Phillies 11 out of 12. The Phillies beat them in the playoffs. The Mets dominated the Dodgers during the season series in 1988. But there is a little bit of a trend there because most of those teams we're talking about are good offensive teams that are very patient hitters. And that Cleveland bullpen we thought that was going to be so great hasn't been all that great this year.
1 ball, 2 strikes, and 2 outs. Garciaparra with the lead off first. And the pitch to Hatteberg. A bouncer to third base off the glove of Tyler Houston. Houston backing up on the ball. And so now it's first and second and 2 out.
Well, you called it. His first mistake was backing up on the ball. All he had to do was charge that ball, and he was going to get it probably on a big hop. But he ran away from it, thinking he'd get even a better hop, and it just handcuffed him. Rule of thumb is don't back up very often on ground balls. If you're always charging, you're going to get better hops.
So it's first and second, 2 out. Jason Varitek. Call it a base hit.
Well, Hatteberg will take it. He was hitting .200.
So first and second, 2 out, and Varitek, who has bounced out twice. In his first at-bat, he was robbed by Jim Thome, and that saved a run. Garciaparra had a leadoff double in the second, and with 2 out, Varitek whistled one right down the first base line. And Thome made an outstanding play to get Varitek unassisted at first. 1 ball, no strikes. Jason, in his first year as an everyday catcher, has just been an enormous surprise with his productivity. Only Pudge Rodriguez has caught more games in the American League, and only Pudge has more home runs and RBIs than Varitek.
Charlie, it's going to be interesting to see, even if Bartolo Colon gets out of this inning, whether the Indians might get their bullpen going. Again, the plan of the Indians is first and foremost have their big 3 rested and ready to go in postseason. Secondarily, they would like to get home field advantage throughout, but they'd rather have their pitching staff totally rested. He threw 106 in his last start. He's close to that right now.
1 ball, 1 strike, 2 outs. 2 on in the top of the 6th, and the Red Sox with a 1-run lead. And Varitek takes high and away, 2-1, 99 miles an hour.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with Colon's stuff at this point. But again, how long are you going to go with him? Mike Hargrove still remembers last September, Colon wearing down to the point where they had to put him on the shelf for 2 weeks. They didn't disable him because it was already after September 1st.
In the second half of the season, Colon has won 9 of 11 decisions and an ERA of slightly over 2.5. Here comes the 2-1. catching the corner at 99 miles an hour. That's about a near unhittable fastball, 2-2.
Just painting right now against those left-handed batters. Good job of framing by Diaz, but that ball was on the edge.
2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. Garcia Parra at second base. Hatteberg at first. Wilton Veras on deck. Popped up foul. Houston has run out of room. 5 rows back.
Speaking of Houston, they are in a struggle with the Phillies tonight. 3-3 in the 5th. Well, you talk about 2 teams going in opposite directions. A 12-game winning streak for the Astros and an 11-game losing streak for the Phillies.
It's like all the air is out of the Phillies' tire.
Well, they look like one time they were 61-48, going to finish over 500 for the second time only since 1986, 1993 being that year. But they've lost something like 16 out of their last 17, and the wheels have come off.
They have had no pitching at all the second half of the season. 2 balls, 2 strikes, and 2 outs. Here's the pitch to Veritek. He is struck out. That is strikeout number 7. Red Sox leave 2 and fail to score. After 5 1/2, Boston by 1. What else is new? Another sellout here at Jacobs Field in Cleveland. 43,224. 365 consecutive sellouts. Harold Baines to lead it off for the Tribe in the bottom half of the 6th. Harold is 1 for 2.
Bet if they'd known, they would have filled a stadium that held 50,000 instead of 43.
No balls and 2 strikes. And just go back 10, 15, 20 years ago. They'd draw 70,000 at the old ballpark on the lakefront on opening day and about 4,500 a night the rest of the way. Here comes the 0-2. Call strike 3. Strikeout number 10 for Pedro Martinez.
The thing that makes it so impressive tonight, Charlie, is he is not anywhere near as sharp as he was against the Yankees. But a great fastball away on the corner. 10 strikeouts in 5 1/3. This guy can strike people out even when he's not on his top game.
In his last 37 innings of work, Pedro Martinez has struck out 68. And Jim Thome takes a strike.
Well, he came in with 103 more strikeouts than anybody in the American League. Aaron Seeley was the guy 103 behind him. So make that 113 now.
Sammy Sosa still in search of home run number 60 at Cincinnati. Cubs are hitting in the 9th inning. And the Reds are leading 5-3. Thome takes inside. It's 2-1. So you take a look at some bonus coverage from Cincinnati. Two balls and 2 strikes to Jim Thome. The Cubs with 57 wins and Sammy with 59 home runs. And Mark McGuire sideline with the pulled groin ball. Thome takes upstairs. The count is full, 3-2. Of course, the Cubs and Cardinals finish up the season in St. Louis. Interesting to see if that home run record will be in jeopardy or not. Boy, you think 70 can hang on for a whole year? Thome is struck out. Strikeout number 11.
Well, Jim Thome was sitting on fastball because that's about the only pitch you think he got a chance against, and he still beat him with a heater. Gas tailing. He's made that same pitch to both Baines and Thome.
Justice has been struck out twice tonight. Thome twice. Tyler Houston twice. The only Indian who has not been struck out tonight by Pedro Martinez, Omar Vizquel, who's 2 out of 3. Richie Sexton is frozen solid by a breaking ball. It's 0-1. Nothing in 2. Well, Sammy's not going to get a home run, but he's got a base hit up the middle. That scores Mark Grace, and the Cubs now pull to within 1. And Sexton is struck out. 4 strikeouts in a row for Pedro Martinez. That's 12 on the night. 3-2 Boston. 2 as we head to the 7th inning, and Ramon Martinez, having struck out the last 4 hitters he has faced, 12 on the night. A reminder that on the 5th of November at 8:30 Eastern Time, live from Las Vegas, is the Major League Players' Choice Awards, a night where the players select the best in the game of baseball. The players do all the voting. Best player, pitcher, rookie, reliever, among the categories. It's a great night of baseball a week after the World Series has come to an end. It's going to be live from Las Vegas, the Players' Choice Awards presented by Pro Pishon. First ball swinging, Wilton Veras, and it's 0-1. Wilton is 1 for 1 and a walk tonight, and he has scored 2 of the 3 runs for the Red Sox.
That's his first name, by the way. First pitch swinging Wilton.
They've shortened it to Wilton. Here comes the 0-1. He is a free swinger. 1-1. But he has really filled in very nicely. Boy, kids are enjoying the ball game tonight. Home team down by a run. Ice cream cone tastes mighty good along about now. 1-2 to Veras.
How scary is Pedro Martinez? 12 strikeouts through 6 innings on a night where he has not been quite as sharp. He has thrown 110 pitches. That's the only negative.
Foul back.
But I think some of that you have to give the Indian hitters, too. I mean, Omar Vizquel with those 2 great at-bats early and then got a base hit. He got a double and a single. David Justice fouling off 2 or 3 tough changeups, making Pedro go 3 and 2 on the 2 strikeouts he got. So the Indians have made him work for his strikeouts tonight.
The most dominating season that I can remember in the last 20 years by a pitcher. Here's the 1-2, and Veras stays alive. 78, Ron Guidry, when he went 25 and 3, when he was just simply unhittable. And like Pedro this year, no pitch ever seemingly went straight. And this year, I get the sense that we're seeing Guidry circa 78, 21 years later.
I agree with you, but you got to throw Doc Gooden of 84 in there, too. 24 and 4 with a 1.53 ERA.
1 ball, 2 strikes. I was in New York both those years, saw both those guys, and always thought Guidry was just a little more imposing, as amazing as that might seem. 2-2. And Doc last night got shelled again.
Yeah, he's really not pitching well. It's kind of a mystery because he's hitting anywhere between 92 and 94 on the gun.
The 2-2 to Veras, grounded to short. And Omar Vizquel with an easy toss across the diamond. 1 out here in the 7th. Loosening up in the Red Sox bullpen, Tomokazu Oka. What a year he had in the minor leagues.
One time was undefeated. I think they finally hung a couple of L's on him at Pawtucket.
Fastball missing outside to Trot Nixon.
AAA World Series coming up on ESPN2 next week. 4 remaining teams are Vancouver and Oklahoma in the Pacific Coast League, and Durham and Charlotte in the International League.
1 ball, 1 strike. 1 out. We're in the top half of the 7th inning.
I've got the tough duty of being out in Las Vegas for a week to broadcast that.
Oh, man. Just bring a lot of cash. 2 balls and a strike. And Sean DePaula is warming up in the Indian bullpen. He's been a pleasant surprise since his call-up.
And Mike Hargrove says, I want to see a little more of this guy because he's got an outside shot to have one of those 11 pitching roster spots.
Calls. Strike at the knees. It's 2-2. 98. So Colon still has a full tank. Jose Offerman is on deck. It's been a quiet crowd here tonight. It's amazing what overpowering pitching can do. Call, strike 3, strikeout number 8 for Bartolo Colon. So far we've seen 20 strikeouts between these two pitchers tonight.
Boy, he's been painting down and away with regularity, it seems, ever since the visit from Phil Regan after he walked the first 2 hitters in the 5th inning. I think Phil might have said, go a little more with that 2-seamer, and let's see if we can get some ground balls. But 20 strikeouts through 6+, that's about probably what the over-under was.
But now we're playing with house money. Jose Offerman with the home run back in the 3rd inning, a 2-run shot. His 7th of the year. The Red Sox have never trailed tonight. Boston with 2 in the 3rd on the home run by Offerman. The Indians scored 2 in the bottom of the 4th, but quickly in the top half of the 5th. The Red Sox took the lead, and that's where we are. 3-2 with 2 out in the top half of the 7th inning. Jimmy Williams and the Red Sox go home after the long road trip tonight after the game.
Charlie, as impressive as the 2-run homer by Offerman was, I thought his last at-bat when he drove in the go-ahead run, he was down 0-2, kept being very defensive, fouling off pitches, but with the infield back, was able to hit a ground ball to produce the 3rd run. He's got all 3 RBIs tonight.
That's a strike. 97.
Well, the Red Sox hitters are shaking their head, but Tim Welke's been very consistent on that call all night long. This has been like a carbon copy lately for Bartolo Colon. That fastball tailing away and just catching the front part of the plate.
2 balls, 2 strikes. And 2 out. Nobody on in the 7th inning. 99 and missing. 3-2.
Something when you can throw a 2-seam fastball 95, 96 and then go with your 4-seamer hitting 99 and 100.
The only thing wrong with that picture, the pitch count, 125 of them for Bartolo Colon here in the 7th. Foul back. We'll do it again.
Well, if he comes out for the 8th, Mike Hargrove is going to have to answer a lot of questions. Yeah, he'd like to win, but he wants to win in October. He's already taken care of the regular season.
The Indians with a 3-game cushion in the race for home field advantage over the Yankees, and the Yankees are leading the Blue Jays 6-4 in the 8th at Skydome. Here's a 3-2. Foul back, and Offerman is making Colon's life miserable.
Well, that lead got reduced to 2.5 with Texas's win today. The Rangers end up going 12-0 against the Minnesota Twins this year. That's taking care of business. They are beating the teams they're supposed to beat.
And nobody's been talking about Texas for the last month. And all they keep doing, Johnny Oates and his club, is win.
Well, they're not in the heart of media land.
3 balls, 2 strikes, and 2 outs. And Offerman with the walk.
I think that's going to be it for Colon. I mean, Mark Hargrove was squirming over there as that pitch count was going 125, 126, 127. Fans are booing, but they shouldn't be.
It's about time for Bartolo Colon, who has thrown a whale of a game, giving up just 3 runs and 5 hits. But at the moment, he will go out as the losing pitcher. Right-hander Sean DePaulo is coming in, and Bartolo Colon is heading on out. Call up from AAA Buffalo, and he's had quite a season. Began the year at Class A Kinston of the Carolina League, where he was 4-2 and a 2.28 ERA. Had 7 saves and 23 relief appearances there. Had a couple of stints at Akron. Promoted to Buffalo on August the 21st, and promoted to the big club 10 days later. So it's been quite a year for the rookie right-hander DePaula. And since coming up, this is his 5th appearance. Has an ERA of 9.82, but actually he had 1 bad outing. But since then, he's been outstanding, and he has really worked his way into the teacher's pet category of Mike Hargrove and Phil Regan.
Well, by bringing him up on August 31st, that allowed him to be considered for the postseason roster. If he would have come up 1 day later, could not have. But Indians' bullpen, which was supposed to be a great strength, hasn't been all that's been advertised so far this year.
Damon Buford, first ball swinging right into the glove of Tyler Houston, and DePaula on 1 pitch gets out of the inning. And we're at the 7th inning stretch, and the Red Sox lead by 1. Martinez, as we head to the bottom half of the 7th inning, nurses a 1-run lead, and tonight 12 strikeouts.
Well, a great variety. Curveball to Kenny Lofton, fastball to Tomei, high cheese to Richie Sexson, fastball to Tyler Houston. Then he got Justice twice on curves. Houston on a 2-seamer. Look at the knee buckler on Diaz. The curve again, a fastball painted, breaking ball. He got every one of them except Robbie Alomar. He got him with a changeup in the 1st inning.
And he has struck out the last 4 hitters in a row, and quickly is ahead of Tyler Houston. We're kidding in the beginning of the ball game that Houston, with mixed feelings about seeing his name in the starting lineup tonight. Happy to get a chance to play as Travis Fryman continues to recuperate from the knee. And then he finds out he's hitting against Pedro Martinez, and he struck out twice, and now it's 0-2.
Good news, bad news, Tyler. You're in there tonight. Oh, yeah? Who's pitching?
Oops. 0-2. Einar Diaz on deck. Up high. It's 1-2.
Well, Pedro started this inning with 110, so I'm guessing this is going to be his last frame if he can get on through it.
1 ball, 2 strikes, and Tyler Houston steps out.
Even if Pedro had not come up with the arm problem at midseason this year, they don't like him to go much over 125.
12 strikeouts, 1 walk. Correction. 13 strikeouts and 1 walk. Here's Bill Pito. Billy?
All right, Charlie, Houston trying to make it 13 wins in a row. Meanwhile, the Phillies have lost 11 in a row. Here in the 5th, Lance Berkman to center. Doug Glanville having all kinds of problems out there. Can't make the play. Run comes in to score, and it's now 4-3 Houston at the top of the 7th. The Reds are victorious against Chicago, so the Reds now trail the Astros by 3.5 and the Mets by 2.5 for the wild card.
Reds keep winning, and they can't make any hay on anybody. So meanwhile, Pedro gets Einar Diaz getting out in a hurry. Pedro has struck out 5 in a row.
Well, that one was a breaking ball that just got away. He did buzz Diaz last time, but this one's a curveball that just got messed up on the release point. Look at the break on it, and Diaz didn't know which way to go. It almost hit his bat behind his head. Boy, you talk about seeing your life flash before your eyes.
Let's see Einar dig in now, huh? Another breaking ball. 2-0.
Now that he's bent his knees a couple of times, he'll probably try to paint the fastball on the outside corner.
Let's see what he does on 2-0 to Einar Diaz. Pops it up. In short left field. Troy O'Leary. 2 out. Well, that ends a string of 5 strikeouts in a row.
Moral victory. Diaz had a pretty good pitch to hit there.
but my sense is that back foot wasn't as planted as firmly as it might have been.
The old spaghetti leg.
2 out, nobody on, and Kenny Lofton. Kenny tonight, nothing for 3. He has been struck out once. Omar Vizquel, the only Indian who has not been struck out tonight by Pedro Martinez.
Somebody asked me back in Bristol, how many times would Pedro get you? I said 3. They said 3. Why not 4? I said because the manager would call me back for a pinch hitter before the 4th.
1 ball, no strikes to Lofton. So in his last 2 outings, Pedro Martinez has struck out 30 hitters. And a line drive base hit for Lofton. A 2-out single into left field.
Trying to think what the major league record is for 2 consecutive games, and I think it might be 32. I think Doc Gooden may have done 16 in back-to-back games, and I think Louis Tiant went something like 19 and 13. But we'll have to see. But I think Pedro probably is going to get stuck on 14, even if he gets Vizquel because of the pitch count.
Vizquel is 2 for 3, a single, a double, and a ground out tonight. Let's see if Kenny's going to go. Nope. Punting up the third base line, nothing in 1. Lofton hasn't had a stolen base since June. Kenny has had 2 visits to the disabled list since the All-Star break, between a hamstring and a bulging disc in his back. Had an MRI, and they discovered the sore back. At least the source of it. Drilled into right field for a base hit. Lofton will hold at second base. Kenny had to get out of the way of that screaming meanie, or he'd be at third. So Vizquel tonight is 3 out of 4.
Charlie, it usually holds that when you're facing a great pitcher, whether he be somebody who can finesse or overpower you, it's the guys with a short stroke that do the most damage. They usually can handle the power hitters pretty well because the power hitters want to get the bat started a little earlier. But Vizquel has had 4 great at-bats against Pedro Martinez tonight.
And Roberto Alomar has 2 hits tonight. So the Indians have out-hit the Red Sox 8-5, but trail 3-2, 2 on, 2 out. Alomar takes a ball outside. Robbie on the year, 333 now. 23 home runs, 106 RBIs. Two balls and no strikes. Alomar, who is engaged to Mary Pierce, who played well at the U.S. Open. Robbie among the league leaders in average, RBIs, stolen bases, walks, on base percentage, leads the league in runs scored. He'll certainly get some MVP consideration.
I wouldn't really know who to cast my vote for right now. You can certainly make a case for Manny Ramirez, his 144 RBIs, Pudge Rodriguez, Derek Jeter, Nomar, Pedro, Robbie. No dead set certain in that one.
2 balls and a strike. The 126th pitch of the night is a call strike. It's 2-2.
Curveball's been one of his best pitches tonight. On an evening that he hadn't had his changeup working for a strikeout pitch, backdoor curveball. He's only had 1 strikeout on the changeup, and that was Alomar in the first inning.
2 on, 2 out, the 2-2, and Alomar just manages to stay alive. Oakland and Baltimore rained out, and tomorrow's game has already been postponed.
Wonder if Oakland was able to get out of town then.
And the A's, who began the night 3 games behind the Red Sox in the wild card race, now have 2 games that they have to make up at some point. The wild pitch Gets the runners up to second and third. So the tying run now 90 feet away. 3 balls, 2 strikes, and 2 outs. David Justice on deck.
Well, not even sure what the pitch was. It was either the curve or the change, but it was so down in the dirt, it was tough to pick up.
So on 3-2, they will pitch to Alomar with Justice on deck. A base hit, and the Indians will get the lead. Fouled off to the left side and out of play.
Well, already Pedro is probably at a plateau that Jimmy Williams doesn't like, but I'm sure he wants to have him finish the inning if possible.
Lofton at third, Vizquel at second. All this after 2 are out and nobody on. Alomar is struck out. Strikeout number 14 for Pedro Martinez. 31 in his last game, plus 7 innings for the night. He has thrown 130 pitches, 85 of them strikes. He has struck out 14 and walked only 1. Brian Dahlbeck, nothing in 1. Brian tonight, happy to see Bartolo Colon out of there. He was struck out all 3 times by Colon. Colon struck out 8 and walked 3 in 6 2/3 innings, and Sean DePaula beginning his first full inning of relief. And quickly it's 0-2, and DePaula making a bid to get onto this postseason roster has been impressive to this point.
Brian Dahlbeck starting to have a little bit of a confidence lag. First sustained slump he's had, and he just can't make contact right now.
0-2. Stays alive. Garcia Parra on deck. Troy O'Leary to follow.
Let's see if we saw Pedro with the gold chain out. Is that a sign that he's done? He's got the gold chain hanging around his neck now. He probably had it under the uniform, but
I guess that would qualify as an outie. And that will be a strikeout once the throw is made to first base. And Brian Dahlbeck has fanned 4 times tonight.
well, he saw the pinnacle of success when the Mariners were in town, and he had 15 RBIs over a 4-game stretch. American League Player of the Week, but all of a sudden fallen on very difficult times. 9 for his last 74.
And here is Nomar. Takes a breaking ball inside. Nomar tonight is 2 for 3 and has raised his batting average to .352. Leads the American League. And it's 1 ball and 1 strike.
Well, we talked about 2 or 3 innings ago that if Pedro could make it through 7, depending on who was coming up, they have Justice, Baines, and Tomei scheduled. It's a perfect set situation for Real Cormier if he's warming. It's tough to see that Red Sox bullpen.
Here's the 1-1. Snubbed up the first base line and foul. Well, Pedro certainly earned his money tonight. 130 pitches. Struck out 14 and walked only 1. He has struck out 31 in his last 16 innings.
And walked 1. And hit a batter.
Yeah. And this was nowhere near what he had on Friday night against the Yankees.
Well, he struck out to 17 on 120 pitches. But I think sometimes you have to give some credit to the Indian hitters tonight. The only thing Pedro didn't really have going was his changeup. On the 14 strikeouts, he only got 1 on the changeup. A lot of times with a lot of left-handed batters, he'll get half of them on that changeup.
2 balls and 2 strikes to Nomar Garcia Parra with Troy O'Leary on deck.
So when in doubt, he went to the curveball. Biggest strikeout of the night, Robbie Alomar, a 3-2 pitch. He broke a curveball off right down at his shoe tops.
And that was with 2 on and 2 out in the bottom half of the 7th. Garcia Parra stays alive.
You know, one of the interesting numbers, we usually peruse them before the game. One of the ones that jumped up at me, Garcia Parra, the second toughest batter in the American League to strike out. Only Mike Caruso, who's kind of a free swinger over with the White Sox, strikes out at a less rate.
Nomar pops it up into short left center field. Sexton gives way to Lofton, 2 gone. While we have a moment, we can tell you this copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Commissioner of Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent. So 2 out and nobody on. And Troy O'Leary, who's nothing for 3 tonight. DePaula at 94 miles an hour on that fastball has managed to stay ahead of the hitters he has faced to this point, and it's been impressive.
Well, veteran Steve Reed, who would maybe have that role, has a tender elbow right now. They took an MRI. He's got some tendonitis in there, so they're concerned about him. They were hoping to have Reed, Shuey, and Jackson. There are 3 main right-handers coming out of the bullpen, but there's Steve.
1-2. And you know, Paul Ossenmacher, as consistent as he has been through the 90s, and nobody has made more appearances than Ossenmacher. Opposing hitters this year are hitting .361 against him.
Yeah, he's square on the bubble. In fact, they're moving Chris Haney into the bullpen now to see if he can get some lefties out.
Did O'Leary go around? Yes, he did, and the inning is over. DePaula does another nice job for the Tribe. Cleveland has 6 outs left, and they trail by a run. Justice, Baines, and Thome, 3 left-handers to face Real Cormier in the bottom half of the 8th inning, and the Red Sox with the 1-run lead. Cormier making his 56th appearance of the year. He's had a very solid season out of the pen for Jimmy Williams. 2-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio.
Well, what's going to be interesting here in the inning, Jim Thome, the 3rd hitter, at times in the past against certain left-handers, Mike Hargrove has hit for Thome, and we'll keep an eye on that in the inning.
This Sunday night at 8:15 Eastern Time, an AFC Eastern Division matchup. One of these 2 teams will fall 0-2 within their own division, as the Jets and Bills will have at it. Rick Meyer will get his first start for the Jets, and Doug Flutie and company have to overcome the loss of Thurman Thomas. Sunday night, NFL football on ESPN at 8:15 Eastern Time. He's got the best seat in the house, doesn't he? So David Justice will lead it off in the bottom half of the 8th inning, to be followed by Harold Baines and Jim Thome. Charlie Steiner, Dave Campbell, our Wednesday night game of the week, coming to you from Jacobs Field in Cleveland, where they have had the 365th consecutive sellout. 43,224. And the home team is down by a run, and David Justice, who has struck out twice and nothing for 3 tonight, takes a strike. 14 strikeouts for Pedro Martinez tonight, coming off his 17th strikeout performance on Friday night. And Justice nubs one up the first base line and foul. It's 0-2.
Wilfredo Cordero has moved out on deck. He will hit for Harold Baines, so Mike Hargrove will make that move.
And Cordero, back from the broken wrist, talked to Will before the game, said the wrist is fine. No longer is there any discomfort. Now it's just a matter of trying to get his timing down and get ready for the postseason.
Will gained a little bit of weight while he was off.
Brian Graham was kidding before the game. He can hit no matter how much he weighs. Justice fouls it, and the count holds it 0-2.
One of the reasons Dave Justice has always been pretty good against left-handed pitching, growing up in the Covington, Kentucky area, two of his three best friends, and they just played ball constantly and pitched to each other, were left-handed. And so he's always hung in and done a good job against left-handed pitching.
Seems like a lifetime ago he was an Atlanta Brave. Here's the 0-2, and Justice pokes it down the left field line, but foul by a foot.
Well, he's got that ability to take the left-hander and go to the opposite field. He changes his thinking. Against right-handed pitchers, he's always looking for a ball inner half to jerk. But against lefties, he gives up the power, sacrifices power for average.
I was thinking about something we were talking about earlier in the game. As overpowering as Pedro Martinez was, striking out 17, walking 1. He threw 130 pitches, and you look back to the at-bats of Omar Vizquel, among others. Did he go around? Yes, says third base umpire Jim Joyce, and Justice is retired.
Justice knew it. He did not put up any kind of a beef. Good angle to show just how far he went. Yeah, definitely way out in front of the plate.
Now it will be Will Cordero hitting for Harold Baines. Harold tonight was 1 for 3 against Pedro. And now Joe Kerrigan is coming out.
Well, this might be something more of a scouting report trip than anything else. You know, I'm sure that Cormier coming in figured he was going to see Justice, Baines, and maybe a pinch hitter for Tomei. But now Cordero comes up, and I think Kerrigan just wants to go over what information they have on Will Cordero.
But again, thinking back on the little things of this game, getting Pedro Martinez out of the game. All those pitches at Omar Vizquel forced Pedro to throw to him. Had one 10-pitch at-bat, another an 8-pitch at-bat. 18 of those pitches. That's more than 10% of what Pedro threw all night in 2 at-bats to Omar Vizquel. First ball swinging, Cordero grounds to second base, 2 gone.
Charlie, even if the Indians should lose this game, not rally to tie it or win it, they still walk away, I think, saying to themselves, we had a great approach tonight. You know, Bartolo Colon kept us in the game. A break here or a break there, and we can beat him. But I think they're going to have that same type of approach next time they face him, and if that's in postseason, they've got to try to wear him down. Battle tough, foul pitches off, get deep in the counts.
Now here's an interesting matchup with 2 out, nobody on. Jim Tomei and his old hunting buddy, Real Cormier. They hunt together in the offseason, along with Mark Clark of the Texas Rangers. Now, you may recall back in late April in Boston, Jim Tomei was hit by a pitch by his old hunting buddy, and he charged the mound. And they had a free-for-all. Tomei would eventually be suspended for the first time in his career. They had at it, they went at it tooth and nail in the middle of the field. Game was over. Tomei had dressed, Cormier had dressed. Real Cormier took Jim Tomei back to the hotel in his car.
Yeah, he was waiting for him afterwards.
In the old days when you were waiting for somebody afterwards, wasn't to drive him home.
Yeah, well, that was all precipitated. That was the game Jared Wright hit Darren Lewis in the head, and Lewis, second time he'd been hit by Jared Wright, so he charged the mound. Cormier feeling he had to protect his teammates, but Tomei was the guy.
Halfway out to the hill, he suddenly realized he was going after his best friend. Here's the 2-1. And Tomei finds a hole into right field for a 2-out hit.
Well, there's a little confidence builder for Tomei. Again, Hargrove at times in the past has hit for Tomei, but when Jim can get base hits against left-handed pitching, that's cataloged into the postseason file. Richie Sexton coming up. I don't think he's going to see the left-hander Cormier.
Well, Jimmy Williams is going to talk to the first base umpire, Mike DeMuro.
Jimmy's probably got 2 right-handers warming up, and he just wants to make sure DeMuro gets the right one in that he wants. Again, we're kind of blind to the bullpen down there, but that's the only thing I can think of that Jimmy would want. So.
That is the unmistakable visage of Rich Garces on his way in. Garces is one you cannot miss from 100 bases. Tonight have come after 2 are out. And they trail 3-2. Dave Roberts now pinch running for Jim Thome at first base. Richie Sexson, nothing for 2 and a sac fly tonight. Rich Garces, he of the ample girth.
Oh, you're such a wordsmith.
Making his 24th appearance of the season. In 31 1/3 innings, he has struck out 24.
If you're going to throw Richie Sexson a slider, you better make sure it's down and away and it's got some good tilt on it, because this guy can jump on a breaking ball and hit it a long ways.
Here's Dave Roberts, who can fly.
39 steals at Buffalo this year.
And the Red Sox are thinking the same thing we are.
Yeah, I don't think he runs. I mean, Sexton with 108 RBIs, I think you give him a chance to win the game for you or put you ahead here in the 8th. But if Sexton gets 2 strikes on him, then you might start the runner, and you got Sexton leading off if they catch it.
1 ball, no strikes. Roberts, he's leaning, and Garces took his foot off the rubber. Roberts came in and did a nice job in center field, filling in for Kenny Lofton during his 2 visits to the disabled list. And in the offseason, Dave Roberts is a Little League coach in the San Diego area. 1 ball, 1 strike. About a month or 6 weeks ago.
What if the kids call him Mr. Roberts?
Well, they wrote a series of letters to the editor in the Cleveland Plain Dealer talking about Coach Roberts. And here's the 1-1, and it's 2-1. And then about 4 or 5 of the kids from the Little League team flew in for a weekend series. And it was just a wonderful, heartwarming story. Here's a guy in the offseason. He's been, to this point, a career minor leaguer until this season, who just enjoys coaching Little Leaguers. They have run out of room, and it's 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Well, that was a case right there where Garces hung a curveball, but he hung it so far inside that Sexton tied himself up.
Mike Stanley is at first base now for Boston, replacing Brian Daubach.
Well, let's see if they put Roberts in motion now. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Tyler Houston is on deck. Roberts with a decent lead, not a huge one. There he goes. Here's the pitch. It's way upstairs. A throw to second base, not nearly in time. And so the tying run is in scoring position with 2 out, and now the count is full 3-2 to Richie Sexson.
4 breaking balls and then some severe chin music. Roberts, pretty good jump. Garces kind of slow to the plate, and Veritek not much of a shot.
And so the tying run in scoring position with 2 out in the bottom of the 8th. Garces getting the sign from Jason Veritek. First and second, 2 out. And Tyler Houston coming up.
Well, Jimmy Williams doesn't really have any move left because his one left-hander is Cormier. The other left-hander on the roster is Kent Merker, but he's got bad ribs. So it'll be Rich Garces against Tyler Houston here. Houston with a chance to atone for a rather rough evening.
Tyler, since coming to the Indians from Chicago, is now 1 for 9 hitting 111. Houston takes a strike. 0-1. Tonight, Houston, we have a problem. Tyler is 0 for 3, has been struck out 3 times. So he is one happy fellow that Pedro Martinez is watching the game now and not pitching anymore. One and one. One ball, 1 strike, 2 out. Bottom half of the 8th inning. Drilled to left field, fairly deep. Back at the wall. Off the wall. 1 run will score. Here comes Sexton. Here comes the throw. Sexton scores. The throw goes wild. On to third base, Tyler Houston. And the Indians lead 4-3.
When you make a move like John Hart did to pick up Tyler Houston just before the trade deadline, you're saying to yourself, if this guy can help us win 1 game, it's worth it. He may just have done that after a very tough night against Rich Garces. He pounds one off the top of the wall to put Cleveland ahead by 2. Or excuse me, by 1. Drives in 2.
2 runs in the bottom of the 8th. So the Red Sox were able to get Pedro Martinez out, and then they capitalize on Rich Garces. Einar Diaz, who is 1 out of 3 tonight. And so the Indians show why. They have been so tough for so long.
Looking ahead to the top of the 9th, the scheduled hitters for the Red Sox, Hatterberg, Varitek, and Veras, 6, 7, and 8.
Einar Diaz behind on a fastball, 1 and 2.
And to think that Jim Thome started this rally with a 2-out single. And then a tough at bat by Sexton after a stolen base, a walk, and then Tyler Houston became the hero for the moment.
7 of the Indians' 10 hits tonight have come with 2 outs. Diaz nubs it foul. Braves and Padres follow us. Smoltz and Clement are the pitchers. Messrs. Carpenter and Sutcliffe will be the announcers. But we've got a good one here as the Indians have scored 2 in the bottom of the 8th to take a 4-3 lead. And Diaz pops it up. At third base, Wilton Veras. But the Indians on Tyler Houston's 2-out, 2-run double take the lead, 4-3. With the Indians leading 4-3, we head to the top half of the 9th inning. Enrique Wilson now at third base, replacing Tyler Houston, who had, to this point, the game-winning RBIs. Richie Sexton moves from left field to first base, and Dave Roberts is now in left field. He pinch ran, of course, for Jim Thome in the bottom half of the 8th inning. And Sean DePaula, who has been outstanding in his inning and a third of relief, will be facing Hatterberg, Varitek, and Veras in the top half of the 9th inning.
Well, a little bit of a trial balloon here for Mike Hargrove. The book would say go to your closer Mike Jackson, but I think Hargrove said, well, the kid pitched great when we were behind. Let's see how he does with a lead. I mean, again, you talked about it earlier in the show. I mean, in some respects, this is glorified spring training for the Indians. They're trying to get Fryman. Whoops, now Hargrove's on his way out to the mound. All that was to get Mike Jackson a little more loose. So wrong on that point. But they're trying to get Fryman healthy, Alomar healthy. They're trying to make sure Lofton's healthy, get their bullpen healthy. And now Jackson, who had not quite had time to warm up on a cool evening, will come in.
And it also gives Sean DePaula an opportunity to get a standing ovation from this crowd at Jacobs Field. 4-3 lead in the top half of the 9th, and Mike Jackson coming in at the moment. The Red Sox actually will fall 4.5 behind the Yankees if they are unable to come from behind and beat the Indians tonight in the 9th inning. And the Red Sox will then lose a half game to the Athletics, who are quite literally washed out in Baltimore, and their game with the Orioles tomorrow has already been postponed. And the Blue Jays lose more ground to the Yankees, and it looks as if time is about run out on Toronto.
Well, time and
inexperience.
Well, that and losing 2 of their starting pitchers, Chris Carpenter and Joey Hamilton. So that loss yesterday was a crusher. 6-2 lead in the 8th inning, and Billy Koch thought he had Derek Jeter struck out. Didn't happen. Grand slam.
Now Scott Hatteberg facing Mike Jackson. Hatteberg tonight is 1 for 3, struck out twice. And for Mike Jackson, his 65th appearance of the season. Look at Vizquel. Hatteberg just beats it. So an infield hit. Tying run aboard with nobody out, Jason Varitek.
Well, they got it past Enrique Wilson, and Omar Vizquel got everything on it he could, but Hatteberg runs pretty well for a catcher, and batting from the left side, he was able to beat it out. Got a pinch runner now. Is that Donnie Sadler? I believe it's Donnie Sadler. Can't see a number right now.
Donnie Sadler is the pinch runner at first base, and he can fly. Little number 15.
Well, let's see what Jimmy Williams has in mind. Probably most of the time you don't play to tie on the road. And you got a guy that can hit the ball out of the ballpark in Varitek.
Swinging away, it's a call strike. It's 0-1. Varitek tonight is 0 for 3, has 16 home runs, 63 runs batted in. So now the Red Sox well aware that the Yankees have beaten Toronto tonight. And Varitek whistles a base hit into right field. And Sadler's on his way to third. First and third, nobody out.
Well, each manager has employed a pinch runner, and it's paid off in both cases. Donnie Sadler whistling around to third base. No throw from Dave Justice. Mike Hargrove used a pinch runner, and he stole a base, Dave Roberts. And in this case, Sadler even had to hold up for a second, but he knows right there's no way Justice is going to get him. He can scoot.
First and third, nobody out, and Reggie Jefferson will pinch hit for Wilton Veras. Jefferson hitting .283 with 5 home runs, 17 RBIs. 0-1. This is Reggie's just his 192nd at-bat all season. The Indians are playing their infield back and in double play depth. Outfield straight away, so they'll surrender the run to get the out. Here's the 0-1. No balls and 2 strikes to Reggie Jefferson. Trot Nixon is on deck.
Mike Jackson going right after him. Of course, Jackson's specialty is the right-handed batters. Since 1993, they're hitting .187 against them, but the lefties fare a lot better. And after Jefferson comes Trot Nixon and then a switch hitter, Jose Offerman. So unless they get a double play, he's going to see 5 lefties in a row.
What do you think about playing the infield back?
Oh, I think you definitely have to try to go for the double play and go for the tie here. You got the hammer and home field advantage.
Well, Jefferson is struck out. So Mike Jackson strikes out Reggie Jefferson. 1 out, runners at the corners. And Trot Nixon is the hitter.
Well, Jackson just reached back and got a little extra and struck out Reggie Jefferson. So a double play now could end the game. Reggie usually pretty good at putting the ball in play.
The Braves and Padres follow us. Follow us to freedom. San Diego has scored a run. in the bottom half of the first against John Smoltz, 1-0. At Qualcomm, a fly ball to deep center field. This should score the tying run easily. And it will. So the Red Sox, with 2 out in the 9th inning, have tied the score. Trot Nixon with a sacrifice fly.
So Jackson gives up a run. Both bullpens have given a little ground here. Cormier gave up the hit to Tomei, and then Garces a walk and a double to put the Indians ahead, but the normally reliable Mike Jackson touched for a run here.
And with 2 out, Jose Offerman, 1 for 3 and a walk tonight, and a 2-run home run. Offerman's 7th of the season. No balls and 1 strike. The Indians will have the top of their order in the bottom half of the 9th. Lofton, Vizquel, and Alomar. At first base, Jason Varitek. He would be the lead run. He runs an average base run. Average speed. Outside. 2 balls and 1 strike to Offerman with Damon Buford on deck. Here's Buford. And here's the pitch. Offerman takes upstairs. It's 3-1. In the 3rd inning, Jose Offerman roped a home run to right center field. It was a screaming line drive. Just to the left of the bullpen. And Offerman walks. First and second, 2 out. That's Offerman's 2nd walk in a row.
Jimmy Williams elects to stay with Damon Buford here. He does have the left-handed hitting John Nunnally on the bench, but Buford will hit. And again, Jackson awfully effective against right-handed batters.
Buford tonight is nothing for 4. In case you're wondering, hitting with runners in scoring position, Damon Buford is at .203. Mike Stanley on deck.
Now, the reason Jackson's so successful over the years against right-handed batters is that great late-breaking slider he has.
Nothing in 1. Mike Stanley's contract is up at the end of this year, and he is looking for one of those big, last, long-term kind of deals, and he does not think he's going to get it here in Cleveland. Here's the 0-1, breaking ball upstairs, 1-1. There is some talk that the Indians have been grooming Paul Shuey for that job, but whether or not Shuey physically can handle it, another story. He throws hard, but he also spends an awful lot of time on the sideline. Big fastball. 1-2.
Well, he started Jackson off with a slider, but now he gets the high gas past him. You can go either way now. Fastball up or breaking ball down.
Let's see what he does on 1-2. It's missing outside, 2-2. Jackson desperately wants to get Buford here because the last thing in the world he wants to do is have Mike Stanley come up with the bases loaded. Stanley, a dangerous hitter with Garciaparra to follow. So he's got to stop the bleeding now. And he does. And the inning is over. But the Red Sox tie it with a run in the 9th. And we go to the bottom half of the 9th. And Lofton will lead it off for the Tribe. In the top of the 9th, force the Indians into the bottom half of the 9th inning. In San Diego, the Padres with an early 1-0 lead. The Braves now hitting in the top half of the 2nd. We'll have that game for you as soon as we are done here in Cleveland. Some changes for the Red Sox. Now playing third base, Lou Merlone, who is replacing Wilton Veras. And now pitching, Rod Beck.
Well, I think as a concession to the fact that Beck was coming off arm surgery this year, that's why Jimmy Williams didn't ask him to come in and pitch an inning and a third. I'm sure Jimmy would have loved to use him in that situation where he brought Garces in, but he needed Garces to get an out. He couldn't do it. And so Beck now comes in with a tie.
This may turn out in the long run to be an absolutely great trade in getting Rod Beck. He's still not 100% coming off the elbow surgery in the middle of the year, but he is getting stronger now as the year wears on. Ball outside, 1 ball, no strikes. And really with an eye toward next year. You know, mentioned earlier in the ball game that the Red Sox have used 4 different closers this year, and Beck's been one of them. 1 ball and 1 strike to Kenny Lofton.
Well, Derek Lowe's been effective, but he threw 3 1/3 innings last night. Wakefield did a pretty good job when he was a closer, and Tom Gordon, who has just begun rehabbing that arm, he pitched at Trenton the other day, is the 4th.
1 ball, 1 strike. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Lofton didn't like that call from home plate umpire Tim Welke.
We'll take a peek. Kenny stands pretty close to the plate. It's borderline, but Welke gives it to the pitcher.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Vizquel on deck. Alomar to follow. Bottom half of the 9th. 2 balls and 2 strikes. So the Indians took a 4-3 lead by scoring 2 in the bottom of the 8th. And then the Red Sox score 1 in the top of the 9th to send it here to the bottom half of the 9th inning. And Lofton is struck out. Let's go to Bill Pito. He's got an update for us. Billy?
All right, Charlie, when you guys are done, we'll take the ESPN2 folks to Atlanta against San Diego. And Tony Gwynn down the line, that's going to drive in a run. The Mets beat Colorado today, so Atlanta needs a win to stay 2 games in front of New York. But right now they trail 1-0 in the top of the 2nd.
And here with 1 out in the bottom of the 9th, we're tied at 4. Omar Vizquel, who's 3 for 4 tonight, squares and takes it back. It's a ball high, 1 ball, no strikes. Omar hitting .332. Lou Merlone in at third base. Creeping in even further. And Vizquel with a fly ball to short right field. No damage done, 2 gone.
Well, the least likely guy you would think to have 2 walk-off homers this year, Omar Vizquel, came within an eyelash of getting the good wood on that one. Beck made a mistake with a breaking ball up, but Omar just didn't quite get it on the fat part of the bat.
And now Robbie Alomar, who's 2 out of 4 tonight. A beautiful drag bunt. Scored a run. Single to right and was struck out twice by Pedro Martinez, who fanned 14 tonight. And Alomar takes a ball upstairs. 1 ball, no strikes. Robbie at .333, 23 home runs, 106 runs batted in. One and 1. With each passing outing, Rod Beck is looking like the Rod Beck of old.
Yeah, he's not overpowering, but he's changing speeds pretty well, and he's got enough fastball to keep the hitters honest.
1 ball, 2 strikes. And he has that intimidating Fu Manchu mustache, the long hair, the big wind-up, and that metronome arm of his as he gazes in for the sign. Look at the stare. Here comes the 1-2. Just missing outside. It's 2-2.
You see Robbie Alomar move up in the box there. He was anticipating a split finger pitch from Beck. That's the scouting report. If he gets 2 strikes on you, he throws a splitter. Robbie was going to move up and try to get it before it broke.
Here comes the 2-2. Alomar bounces to third. Merlone with an easy hop throws across the diamond, and the inning is over. We're heading to extra innings. After 9, the Red Sox and Indians are tied at 4. So the Padres now with a 2-0 lead. And here in Cleveland, as we head to the 10th, Paul Shuey is now on in relief.
Well, Shuey is the heir apparent. You talked about him last inning. If Mike Jackson's not going to be the guy for the future, Shuey figures to be. He's got brilliant stuff. The only knock on Shuey over the last couple of years is he has a propensity for a lot of leg injuries. Hamstring pulls, calf pulls, groin pulls. He needs to get on some kind of a stretching program because he's got a great arm. And the good news is he hadn't had any problems with his arm.
And so Mike Stanley will lead it off for the Red Sox in the top half of the 10th inning. That's a call strike. It's 0-1. This is Stanley's first plate appearance of the night. Brian Daubach got the start, and he was finished in a hurry. As Daubach tonight went 0 for 4 and was struck out all 4 times. 3 times by Bartolo Colon. Colon struck out 8 in 6 2/3 innings. Pedro Martinez in 7 innings tonight struck out 17 and walked only 1. Correction, 14. He struck out 17 on Friday. So he struck out 31 in his last 2 games. I've done 3 games this year with Pedro Martinez on the hill. 15, 17, and 14.
He's going to put you on the traveling road show.
2 and 2, and Stanley fouls it back.
15 against Seattle, and he got Junior 3 times that
Buhner
night.
twice.
At least. No, Buhner is 0 for 8 with 8 strikeouts against him.
But that night he struck out twice. You check that. Go back in the old scorebook here.
You actually have the scorebook that goes back that far?
Maybe.
I have score sheets, which go in the porcelain popper after every game.
Admittedly, it's a little ratty, but we'll take a look back. And Stanley takes all 3. The record for consecutive strikeouts in 2 games, Kerry Wood struck out 33.
20 and 13, I recall now.
Stanley fouls it off to the right side. And in 2 performances, consecutive performances by Pedro Martinez, he has struck out 31. So on that night, on May the 12th, Pedro struck out Junior 3 times, Buhner 3 times, Brian Hunter twice, Segui twice, and Stanley walks here to begin the 10th inning.
Pretty good at bat by Mike Stanley right there.
And then on this past Friday night, Martinez struck out Jeter twice, Bernie Williams twice, Chili Davis twice, Ricky Leday 3 times, Scott Brocious twice, Joe Girardi 3 times.
Looks like Jeff Fry has come in to run at first base for Mike Stanley. So Jimmy Williams making all the moves, as is Mike Hargrove.
So Jeff Fry is now the runner at first base. With nobody out, Garcia Parra fouls it back. And tonight, Pedro struck out Alomar twice, Justice twice, Tomey twice, Sexton twice, Tyler Houston 3 times. So he's not just striking out chopped liver.
No. Yankees, Seattle, and Cleveland, 3 of the best hitting teams in baseball.
Mayhem. And Garcia Parra to Vizquel, to Alomar, on to first, not in time. Jeff Fry did a nice job taking Alomar out at second base. But Garcia Parra, who runs well, beats the double play.
Boy, Nomar was flying out of the box. As good a double play combination as you're ever going to see. But Vizquel had to go to his right, and that gave Nomar an extra step or 2, and you can see he clearly beat it at first base.
So 1 out and 1 on, and Troy O'Leary is the hitter. And Troy tonight is 0 for 4. Struck out once. Indians 4 runs and 10 hits. The Red Sox 4 runs, 7 hits.
Nomar, 13 steals so far this year. The only problem here is if you steal, they probably walk O'Leary intentionally, and then Sadler's spot is due next, but Butch Husky is already coming out in the on-deck circle.
Garciaparra not going, and O'Leary takes a ball under the knees. 1 ball, no strikes.
Get your pens, pencils, and scorecards, because this might be a night that we have expanded rosters, and we're seeing a lot of that expanded rosters so far.
Sheldon Ocker, the great baseball writer for the Akron Beacon Journal, who's been covering the Indians for years, had a great lead in the paper this morning. He said, spring training takes place, A, in February, B, in Winter Haven, C, now.
Well, that's kind of it for the Indians.
All of the above.
Yeah, they're trying to get some answers, find some answers, but they've got postseason locked up, and they're the only team that officially can say that at this point.
1 ball, 1 strike, and 1 out. And O'Leary with a high fly ball to fairly deep left field on the warning track. Dave Roberts makes the catch. There's 2 gone. And so it's gotten to the point now that Jacobs Field is the spring training home of the Cleveland Indians. I mean, they have been prepping for the postseason since they arrived here. A 25.5 game lead in the American League Central.
Well, again, we talked about trying to get Travis Fryman and Sandy Alomar back and as active as possible, although both of them are going to play with leg braces. Kenny Lofton, after 40 days off, trying to get him back in shape, and they're monitoring pitch counts like it were spring training, towards the end anyway. Going to make sure none of their starters get overextended.
Butch Husky hitting for Donnie Sadler. And he will remain in as the DH. Sadler was actually a pinch runner for Scott Hatterberg back in the 9th inning, and Hatterberg had been the DH all night to that point, and now it's Husky. Butch, another good pickup in the middle of the season for Dan Duquette.
Red Sox have 3 bench players left by my count. Backup catcher Shea Hildebrand, Darren Lewis, and John Nunnally.
Breaking ball. That's a strike. It's 0-1. Butch wearing the home run hitting number 44 on his back, although his preference would be 42. That was the number he had worn in New York and Seattle. But when he arrived in Boston, they presented him with 44 for 2 reasons. One, Boston was of the opinion that 42 would be retired for Jackie Robinson and or Mo Vaughn. Runner goes in the dirt, and he's safe at second base. So it's no balls and 2 strikes. Not a foul tip.
So Nomar gets a stolen base anytime you're running and the ball's in the dirt. No reason for him not to run once O'Leary made out. I was kind of surprised he didn't go on the first pitch to Husky, because Shuey has a very high leg kick and a slow delivery. At least that's been his book in the past. But he's got Husky by the throat, 0-2.
A couple of pretty good players, huh?
I'd say so.
Oh.
Robbie's probably telling Nomar, do you know how lucky you are you don't have to hit against Pedro?
I asked Nomar about that last week. What's it like having to hit or having to play behind him? He said the best part is I don't have to hit against him. No balls and 2 strikes, and Husky is struck out. First base umpire Mike DeMuro punching out Husky, and we go to the bottom half of the 10th. And the Indians will have Alomar, Justice, and Cordero coming up in the top half of the 10th.
Well, my first thought was he definitely went around, but on the angle that DeMuro's seeing, I don't think so. No, I don't think so at all. But he was rung up by the young umpire, and as you can see, Butch not too thrilled about it.
So Dave Justice, Will Cordero, and Dave Roberts are scheduled to hit. Jeff Fry is the new second baseman for the Red Sox, and Jose Offerman moves from second base to first base. And in some ways, this does have the look of a spring training game because of the additional roster players.
Score sheet beginning to look like hieroglyphics, but it is a spring training game.
Dave Justice takes a strike. Dave tonight, nothing for 4, has struck out his last 3 at-bats. Rung up twice by Pedro Martinez. Takes a fastball up and in. It's 1-1. David, 294, 20 home runs, 86 runs batted in. So the Indians would dearly love to put an end to this ball game right here and now. 1-2.
Well, if you're a Red Sox fan, you might say, okay, Campbell, you said he didn't want to bring in Rod Beck and make him go more in an inning. What's he doing out there? I don't have that answer.
The Yankees come to town here in Cleveland tomorrow. Yankees may be watching our game right now. Here's the 1-2. 2 balls and 2 strikes. The Yankees just finished beating up on Toronto tonight, 6-4.
Well, if Cleveland wins, that puts the Yankees up 4.5 and 5 in the loss column over Boston.
So this is a huge game for the Red Sox. A high fly ball into short left field. Troy O'Leary coming on, and he makes the catch. O'Leary with one eye on the ball and one eye on Garciaparra.
Took a pretty good divot in left field as well. He's repairing it right now.
Gentlemen, replace your divots.
Yep. Wind starting to pick up, and that ball was kind of pushing back towards the infield. Watch when O'Leary grabs it as the turf is going to go flying, as he chunked up a pretty good piece with his knee there. Concentrating. He's yelling, I got it, and then does make the catch.
1 out, nobody on, and Will Cordero. 1 ball, no strikes. Cordero pinch hit for Harold Baines back in the 8th inning and bounced to second base. Hitting .304. Of course, missed awful lot of time with that broken wrist. But he says it's fine now. Showing no ill effects, has no problems checking his swing, hitting off the end of the bat. The wrist is fine. And a fly ball into fairly routine right field. And 2 are gone. Trot Nixon with the play.
Well, again, you can see the outfielders having to do a little maneuvering as the breeze is starting to pick up. I don't think Floyd has come this far yet.
No, but it sure is moving up the East Coast. When the game began, the wind was actually blowing from left to right. Now it's blowing from right toward left. And Dave Roberts is the hitter. Dave with a home run and 8 RBIs, hitting .248. He's playing in left field, but he came into the ball game to pinch run for Jim Thome back in the 8th inning and scored one of the 2 runs in the 8th that gave the Indians their brief 4-3 lead. But the Red Sox scored a run in the top of the 9th, and here we are with 2 out in the bottom of the 10th.
Seems to be when the Indians have been at their most dangerous. 2 outs and nobody on. They have started a lot of rallies, including the one that put them ahead in the 8th inning. 2 outs, nobody on. Thome a hit, stolen base, a walk, a wild pitch, and a double.
The wind is really beginning to whip up now, and that's a fly ball into left center field. And there's some communication problems there, but the center fielder, Damon Buford, makes the catch, and the inning is over. 3 outfield flies, and we head to the 11th inning. As we head now to the top half of the 11th inning, left-hander Tom Martin is now the 5th pitcher of the game for the Indians. An especially important game tonight for the Boston Red Sox, who, as of this moment, trail the Yankees by 4. And should they lose tonight to the Tribe here, they'd fall 5 back in the loss column. Blue Jays appeared near dead in the American League East wild card race even. And here's Tom Martin.
A couple of years ago, Martin got a shot with the Houston Astros and became a pretty effective pitcher for him. He was taken in the expansion draft and was part of the trade that sent Matt Williams over to Arizona, but he's had some physical problems the last 2 years. He's not been 100% healthy, but the Indians taking a look at him, hoping maybe they can get something out of him the rest of the way.
There are some auditions to be had for the bullpen for the postseason for manager Mike Hargrove. Here's Jason Varitek, switch hitting catcher, batting from the right side for the first time tonight against Tom Martin in the 11th inning. Missing outside, 1 ball, no strikes. Varitek on the year hitting .265. It's a little better hitter from the right side at .284. It's .260 from the left side. And he drills one into center field. Back goes Kenny Lofton. Hit it right on the button. Varitek pounds his helmet in disgust and has nothing to show for a solid at-bat.
Boy, Kenny got a great jump. Sometimes Kenny Lofton can take some unusual routes to a baseball, but this time he got an excellent jump and was able to flag it down.
Varitek hit it right on the schnoz. Lou Merloni's first at-bat of the night. He takes under the knees, 1 ball, no strikes. Lou at .248, no home runs, 9 RBIs. He was a call-up from Pawtucket back on September the 7th. Hit .279 down there this year, and he lost one to center field, and there's Kenny Lofton again. Quickly, 2 outs. In the bottom half of the 11th, the Indians will have Richie Sexson to lead off. And then it will be Enrique Wilson and Einar Diaz. And the Braves and Padres will follow us. The Padres are leading in that game 2-0, playing in the 4th inning at Qualcomm.
Can I qualify that by a maybe? Because I've done 2 West Coast games where we never got on the air because the first game didn't end.
I remember, a year or 2 years ago, we were in L.A. Got on the air in time with 2 out in the 9th inning.
That was Colorado and the Dodgers, and Delano DeShields had a count of 0-2 on him with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th.
Here's the 1-1. It's inside. 2 balls and a strike to Trot Nixon, who tonight a sacrifice fly and an RBI, a walk, a strikeout, and a pop out.
1994, Joe Morgan and I were going to do a game in Oakland. Best game we ever did. We never got on the air. It was right in this ballpark the first game where Manny Lee of the Texas Rangers hit a 3-run homer in the 9th inning to make it 11-11, and it went 15 innings.
And here's the 3-1. Nixon fouls it back. It's 3-2.
Joe and I said, what? Oakland was playing Minnesota, and Eck came in and finished off a 1-0 shutout, and they were in the top of the 15th here in Cleveland. We went, boy, we were pretty good tonight.
Not a single mistake. 3 balls, 2 strikes, and 2 outs. Here's the pitch to Trot Nixon. So a 2-out walk to Nixon here in the 11th inning. And that'll bring up Jose Offerman.
Well, Offerman's had a very productive evening. He has knocked in 3. Walked a couple of times. So the last 2 games, he's been a thorn in the side of the Indians. He was 4 for 4 last night.
Well, there's one young fella staying up way past his bedtime tonight. And a couple of 2 old fellas here in the booth. 2 out. And Nixon with decent speed at first base. 0-1 to Offerman.
So you get to do football in Sports Center all winter. I don't have to sleep until November 1st, and then I get a break.
You go into hibernation.
Really?
No balls and a strike, but this is the time of the season when it's really getting good. Offerman drills one deep to left. Back at the wall. Roberts makes the catch. Jose Offerman bidding for his 2nd home run of the night. Takes it to the wall, and we go to the bottom half of the 11th. strike as we begin the bottom half of the 11th inning as Rod Beck begins his third inning of relief work. Sexton tonight, a sacrifice fly and an RBI, a walk, and he's been struck out twice. 0-2 to Sexton with 30 home runs and 108 RBIs. Enrique Wilson on deck, Einar Diaz to follow. In the bottom half of the 11th inning. And the wind continues now to blow in. And Sexton is struck out on 3 pitches, and Rod Beck has been brilliant.
Just absolutely painting the corners, throwing strikes. And again, I guess you have to ask the question, if he's good enough to go out there for his third inning, why couldn't he come in to pitch to one batter in the 8th?
Enrique Wilson, his first at-bat of the night at 261. 1 home run, 22 RBIs. His 1 home run has come here at Jacobs Field. Switch hitter batting from the left side. Wilson drills it foul.
Weren't you and I doing a game here when Enrique Wilson tripled down the right field line just like that? With 2 outs in the 9th inning, the Indians down by a run. And they tied it up and won it.
Here comes the 0-1 to Wilson. Boy, he stands right on top of the plate. 1-1. Enrique Wilson is another one of these young Indians. Whenever there's trade talk, his name pops up as inevitably as Richie Sexton and Russell Branyan. Here's the 1-1 inside 2-1.
Well, I don't want to sound too callous, but if I'm doing the picking, I think I'll choose Richie Sexton.
Well, Wilson has certainly been a valuable utility player for this club. 2 balls and 2 strikes, and Rod Beck is looking like the Rod Beck of old. There's Richie Sexton.
30 bombs, 108 RBIs, and less than 460 at-bats.
Here comes the 2-2 to Wilson. Fouled it off his foot. Well, the crowd of 43,224 has thinned out considerably. After all, it is 11:30 here in Cleveland, and it is a school night.
Looks like Houston has gotten even with Philadelphia in the 9th at 6. They were down 2.
Wilson fouls it off to the left side. The 365th consecutive sellout tonight at Jacobs Field.
I thought you were going to tell me that was the 365th pitch of the game.
Or so it seems.
What was that game in New York with Boston on Saturday? 376 pitches, I believe, the 11-10 game.
Came off the 3-1 Pedro win. And here is a line drive into center field. And oh, what a play by Damon Buford.
Well, Buford nearly made a brilliant catch way back when on a ball hit by Einar Diaz in the 3rd inning, but he comes up with a gem here. He knows that if this ball gets by him, there's even a possibility with Wilson's speed of an inside the Parker. But Damon Buford, a gifted defensive center fielder, he and Darren Lewis both are tremendous with the glove.
2 out, nobody on. Now Einar Diaz. Diaz with 3 home runs on the year. Takes a breaking ball upstairs. 1 ball, no strikes. Einar tonight is 1 out of 4. He singled in his first at-bat. Struck out, popped up a couple of times. Breaking ball inside, 2-0.
Well, the pressure on the Indians at this point is that both Texas and New York have won. So in order to keep that 3-game margin for home field advantage throughout the playoffs, they have to win this game.
Pale by comparison to the pressure that the Red Sox and their fans are feeling. 3 balls and no strikes. Red Sox can ill afford to go 5 behind the Yankees in the loss column. And remember, the A's were washed out in Baltimore today and again tomorrow because of Hurricane Floyd. 3-1. The middle of the Red Sox order coming up. The 2, 3, and 4 hitters in the 12th inning. And a ground ball into left field, a base hit. So Einar Diaz, his 2nd hit of the night. Now let's go back. We've got an update now from Bill Pedro in the studio. Billy?
Okay, Charlie, coming up after you guys are done, it will be the Padres against the Braves. Brett Boone is at the plate here, and he was punched out on a check swing called by the first base ump, Jeff Nelson, who said he went around. Bobby Cox not happy. Jeff Nelson, one of the new umpires. Cox has been thrown out. His team trails 2-0 in the bottom of the fourth.
Bobby Cox is to the National League what Lou Piniella is to the American League. Boy, he's like the Isley brothers. He puts on a good show.
Well, right now, Joe Kerrigan out talking to Rod Beck, and I think maybe this conversation is, do you still have enough for one more batter? And evidently, Rod Beck, and if you know Rod Beck, he would say he had enough for one batter if his arm were in a different continent.
Warming up in the bullpen for the Red Sox looks like John Wasden. And so Rod Beck has just been terrific here tonight. Kenny Lofton is 1 for 5, and he swings and misses. Lofton was the first of 14 strikeouts by Pedro Martinez. Pedro, of course, struck out the 17 on Friday, 14 here tonight.
I think another thing that Joe Kerrigan might have said, okay, Einar Diaz, catcher, but he's got 10 stolen bases. At least look over there and pay attention to him.
He's the first Indian catcher with double-digit steals since Andy Allenson back in 1986.
Well, the thought process, too, you send Diaz, and if he makes it, you got the winning run in scoring position at second base. If he gets thrown out, you got Kenny Lofton leading off the bottom of the 12th.
Let's see what happens on the 1-1. Not going. Looped into short left field. Troy O'Leary coming on. He can't get it. A base hit. First and second and 2 out. It looked like O'Leary took a step back before he took a step in, and that might have cost him.
I totally agree with you. That breeze is holding balls up to left field. We saw that with the ball that Offerman hit. That looked like it might have been a home run. Lofton hits a little chop out there, but O'Leary, not a real good jump on it, and has to play it on one hop.
So Diaz, the winning run at second base, and Omar Vizquel, who is 3 for 5 tonight.
This is a dangerous hitter in this situation, a contact hitter, and all the Indians need is a base hit.
And Vizquel, no stranger to last out heroics in last innings. 1 ball, no strikes to Omar. Omar introduced a new line of clothing here in Cleveland yesterday. 2 balls and no strikes. Said Omar, I don't do cereal and candy bars. I do clothes.
Well, he'd like to close this game off right here.
I put the ball on the tee for you, pal.
Thank you.
2 balls and no strikes. 3 balls and no strikes. And Robbie Alomar is on deck. There's nothing much now that Jimmy Williams and Joe Kerrigan can do. John Wasden continues to warm in the bullpen, the 3-0. 3 balls and 1 strike.
Jimmy Williams always thinking, though, as Veritek looked in, Jimmy said he could be swinging the bat here on 3-0, but he was not. He was taking all the way.
Here comes the 3-1. Ground ball, second base, dive, save, throws, out. What a play by Jeff Fry that saves the game and moves the game to the 12th inning. So close yet so far, and the Red Sox are still alive. Play in the bottom half of the 11th inning. Save the day for the Red Sox.
Well, he was bound and determined this ball was not going to go into right field. He was going to smother it with his body if he couldn't get it. And they just got Vizquel by an eyelash. Tremendous play by Jeff Fry. He figured worst case scenario, I'm going to get an arm on it or something and keep Diaz from scoring, but he got the bonus of coming up with it, and I mean just by an eyelash gets Omar Vizquel at first base.
And in the 12th inning, Damon Buford to lead it off. And Buford, you remember, made an outstanding play, robbing Enrique Wilson.
Well, the guys that make the great plays bat 1 and 2 in the inning. Is that how it goes?
How many times? No balls and 1 strike. Buford with a spectacular play. Also in the 11th. And Buford swings and misses. Jim Brower is the new pitcher for the Indians. Brower pitched at AAA Buffalo and was called up on September 1st. He was a starter there this year. Had 13 wins and a 3.01 ERA. Ground ball up the middle. Look at Omar. Can he get him? Yes! Oh, he beat it. Sexton didn't like the call.
Mike Hargrove's going to come out and argue. He's going to go, you call Vizquel out, you call Buford safe. What's going on here? Well, we know that DeMuro got the one right on Vizquel because we saw the slow motion replay. This one, Vizquel made a brilliant play. Buford was absolutely flying. The reverse 360. I think he's out.
So do I.
Yep. I think he's out. Didn't really see the foot there. But the other one, 6-time Gold Glove winner, whoa, out.
He was. So Buford gets aboard on the questionable infield hit. And Mike Hargrove returns to the dugout.
Well, Fry more than likely is going to bunt. Take a look. Boom. Foot's just coming down. But we get to see it and slowed down. It was a bang-bang play at first base. In fact, 2 in a row.
So now Jeff Fry is the hitter. And smart money is he's going to try and sacrifice. Enrique Wilson already in on the cutout at third.
And that puts a little heat on Mike Hargrove. If Fry can sacrifice, you've got the American League's leading hitter, Nomar Garcia-Parra. But if you walk him, you got Troy O'Leary, who came into this game 11 for his last 17.
But O'Leary has nothing to show for his effort tonight. He's 0 for 5. There goes the runner. Pitch out. He's got him hung up. Throw to first base. Safe.
Wow. Buford took off, took a glance back, knew he was had, and scooted back well in front of the tag. So the Red Sox were going to play hit and run as opposed to sacrifice.
1 ball, no strikes. Buford not going. Fry bunts and fouls it back. It's 1-1.
Jimmy Williams showing a little bit of a riverboat gambler there and got away with it because of great base running by Damon Buford.
He was deader than Julius Caesar until he made that U-turn. 1 ball, 1 strike. Nobody out. The drama building as the clock approaches midnight here in the east. Here comes the 1-1. Brower steps off the rubber. Fry had an intention to bunt. Now he's looking at third base coach Wendell Kim.
Well, the Phillies have edged in front of Houston 7-6 in the 10th inning. Philadelphia trying to snap an 11-game losing streak, and Houston trying to win their 13th in a row.
And the Reds hoping to nudge a little bit closer to Houston. Fry bunts. It's a good one. They have 1 play, and that's the first base. So the sacrifice is effective.
Well, they give Demura a little bit of the what for getting a call what they consider right at first base. Now let's see what Hargrove has in mind. Again, you've got Garcia Parra, but if you walk him, you have to face O'Leary, who's got 99 runs batted in.
Nomar tonight is 2 for 5 and hitting .350, the American League's leading hitter.
I think what you do is you go after Nomar, but now they're not going to. They're going to walk him.
So Garcia Parra will get the intentional pass.
Thought they might try to pitch Nomar tough, and if they got him, walk O'Leary to get to Husky, but they're electing to try to set up a double play grounder, and they'll go against the percentages of right-left to walk the American League's leading hitter.
And O'Leary has bounced into 20 double plays this year. He leads the Red Sox in that ignominious category.
Well, let's say the stage is set for Troy. If he probably couldn't think of a better time to get his 100th RBI of the year in the 12th inning.
The Padres are leading the Braves 2-0. They're in the 5th inning at Qualcomm. We'll get to them as soon as we're done. Don't know when that might be, but I know Bob Carpenter and Rick Sutcliffe are talking to one another, and I'm sure they're engaged in some fascinating conversations. O'Leary takes a ball upstairs, 1 ball, no strikes.
Cursing us out. It's not our guys. It's not our fault. Remember, don't blame the messenger.
First and second, 1 out. We're in the top half of the 12th, tied at 4. And O'Leary takes the strike. It's 1-1.
Isn't that what they tried to tell Julius Caesar?
Who was about as dead as Damon Buford was a couple of batters ago. That's Jim Brower. He is the 5th pitcher of the night for the Indians, and O'Leary is now 1-2. And Troy tonight is nothing for 5. He struck out once. Butch Husky is on deck. The Indians will have Alomar, Justice, and Cordero hitting in the bottom half of the 12th. That's Butch Husky on deck. And O'Leary takes it in the dirt. It's 2-2.
Maynard Diaz mopping his brow. He and Veritek have had a long evening behind the plate tonight, but fortunately for them, the weather has been cool.
Fortunately for us, it's cold right now up here. Wind is blowing in. 2 balls, 2 strikes. The pitch to O'Leary. Popped up. In short left field, Dave Roberts gives way to Omar Vizquel, and Vizquel nonchalants it. There's 2 gone. That's a big out. So O'Leary tonight, nothing for 6.
And again, we see the effect of that wind. It looked like a ball that Roberts was going to take control of, but that wind is pushing it back towards the infield, and I believe that's what kept Offerman's drive to left field in the park.
They're now in the top of the 6th in San Diego, and the Padres lead John Smoltz and the Braves 2-0, a game in which Bobby Cox was ejected. And now Butch Husky, who struck out in his first plate appearance. Ball strike, 0-1. Butch hitting .283 with 20 home runs, 71 runs batted in, but the wind is blowing in now. Offerman nearly had his 2nd home run of the night back in the 11th inning. 0-2 to Husky. Buford at second base. Garcia Parra at first. The Indians 4 runs, 12 hits. The Red Sox 4 runs, 8 hits. Neither team has made an error. What's left of the crowd standing, trying to cheer home a strikeout by Jim Brower. And a ground ball to short. Easy play for Vizquel. Throws on to first, and the inning is over. And we head to the bottom half of the 12th. And the Red Sox and Indians are tied at 4. Alomar Justice. What a long, strange trip it's been for him this year. Take a look now while we have a chance at the American League wild card race up to the minute. The Red Sox with the 3-game lead over the Athletics. In case you're just joining us and you're not anywhere near the East Coast, the Athletics were washed out today and again tomorrow by Hurricane Floyd. They were to play tonight and tomorrow in Baltimore. And the Blue Jays losing again tonight. They are fading rapidly. And so the Red Sox would like to pad their lead over the A's. Roberto Alomar leading off against John Wasden in the bottom of the 12th, and Alomar swinging for the downs. It's 0-1. John Wasden making his 39th appearance of the season, a 4.16 ERA. He has struck out 51 and walked 17. And Alomar is quickly 2 strikes in the hole. Wasden getting it up there at 93 miles an hour. Nothing in 2. Veteran right-hander John Wasden. And Alomar pops it up into short left field. Troy O'Leary. 1 gone in the bottom of the 12th. Well, 4 minutes from now, it'll be later tonight. Colorado State at BYU. Our Thursday night game of the week, preceded by College Game Night, presented by Gateway, the first conference game of the new Mountain West Conference. Colorado State, BYU. Mike Tirico, Lee Corso, and Kirk Herbstreit will have that game for you. Coverage begins at 7:30. Game time is at 8 o'clock.
Charlie, just taking a gander at the schedule. On Thursday, September 23rd,
Dave Justice, the hitter, and he swings and misses.
both Oakland and Baltimore are off, so that might be the likely day that they would try to play a doubleheader, but that's just prior to Oakland going in to play Texas 3 games in a row.
Ooh. Here's the 0-1. Justice takes outside 1-1. Where would Oakland be the day before? Where would they have to travel to? They had to travel to Baltimore from...
They're coming from home, but they're going to be on their way to Texas. But let me see.
Yeah, Baltimore's on the way to Texas.
Yeah, well, backwards.
Here comes the 1-1. We've made trips like that over the course of the season. It's under the knees. It's 2 balls and a strike to David Justice. Justice tonight is nothing for 5. He's been struck out 3 times.
Well, Oakland does play a day game at home on Wednesday the 22nd, but Baltimore is scheduled to play a night game at Texas.
Oh.
So it might be tougher for Baltimore.
Baltimore's not really the factor anymore. Justice takes a strike. It's 2-2. And so Hurricane Floyd has dealt the A's a bad hand. And the wind is really blowing in now. Getting one out of here through the wind tonight at this hour is going to be tough. Justice takes inside, and so now the count is full at 3-2. Will Cordero is on deck. And should we get to the 13th inning, it'll be Jason Varitek, Lou Merlone, and Trot Nixon. I feel like we're living through one of those Snickers commercials. Not going anywhere for a while. Justice fouls it off.
Just checking the scoreboard, see if we can find any interesting nuggets up there. Pittsburgh is leading Arizona 2-0 in the 5th. And guess who's pitching for Arizona with no run support?
It's the Randy Johnson.
The big unit. His teammates have put a big 0 up.
Here's a 3-2, a fly ball to deep left field, but Troy O'Leary makes the catch.
Well, now we're told Randy was scratched from the start, so stiffness in his shoulder, so they have not updated that on the scoreboard. Armando Reynoso got the start in that game.
2 out, nobody on. It's been a long night for Dave Justice, who is now 0 for 6. And Will Cordero making his 3rd plate appearance of the night. Will is 0 for 2. Will is now 1 for 10 since coming off the disabled list. Takes a breaking ball. 1 ball, no strikes. Well, it's about midnight here on the East Coast. Sox and Yankee fans are up late with us. We're glad to have you. Charlie Steiner, Dave Campbell. We're at Jacobs Field in Cleveland. It is so late and the place has gotten so empty, even the little drummer boy out there in the left field stands has been quiet all night.
Yeah, I haven't heard him all evening.
It's midnight at the Oasis. And Cordero, 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Will was trying to strike one at midnight there. Came out of his shoes.
So it's 1 and 2. Wasden getting the sign from Jason Veritek. Of course, this is getaway day, and the Red Sox go home after this game. And it's going to be a late night when they finally arrive home. 2 and 2.
Well, if the Yankees were watching this game in the clubhouse
There he
in
is.
Toronto, what's he doing? Awfully quiet.
He's tired. Here's the 2-2. Just downstairs. 3 balls and 2 strikes.
Has he got a little Elton John in his ears? Or,
It's getting late. Here comes the 3-2. Ball 4, so a 2-out walk in the bottom half of the 12th inning.
Here comes the Tribe again with those patented 2-out rallies.
And Dave Roberts is the hitter. Dave has 1 home run on the year. 8 RBIs, a .246 hitter. And he is now out there in left field for the Tribe. He came in as a pinch runner back in the 8th inning.
This is the 5th time in 12 innings the Red Sox have gotten the first 2 hitters out, but then a batter is reached.
No balls and 1 strike. One ball and 1 strike to Dave Roberts. Oh, even the drummer has fallen asleep. But not Mike Hargrove.
11 out of 12 innings. The Red Sox have retired the leadoff batter.
And we are tied at 4 with 2 out in the bottom of the 12th.
Only time they didn't. In the 4th inning, Vizquel led with a double. Robbie Alomar bunt single, and the Indians scored 2 to tie it at 2 at that point.
1 ball, 1 strike, 2 outs. Up high, 2-1. Dave Roberts, who barely stands 5'7", it's not difficult to throw a pitch high to him.
You're trying to say he's vertically challenged?
I can relate. 2-1. But he did just an outstanding job filling in for Kenny Lofton while Lofton was on the DL the second half of the season. 2 balls and 2 strikes with 2 out. It'll be the bottom third of the Red Sox order in the top half of the 13th if we get there. And the way things have been going, the odds are we will. Cordero, short lead. Wasden makes it shorter.
Wasden knows that Roberts is not a big-time power hitter, so he's got to make him swing the bat here. He doesn't want to get the winning run at second with Richie Sexton coming up.
Yeah, with 2 out in the 12th inning, the outfield playing a little deeper for Roberts than they might ordinarily. Call strike 3, and the inning is over. And we head to the 13th inning, tied at 4. Red Sox in the top half of the 13th inning. Veritek tonight is 1 out of 5, hitting .264. 16 home runs, 63 runs batted in. Switch hitting catcher drills one to deep right field, way back at the wall, and it is gone. A home run. Jason Veritek with a leadoff home run in the top half of the 13th inning has given the Red Sox a 5-4 lead.
Well, Varitek's the guy that got the Red Sox off and winging on this road trip with 3 home runs up in Seattle to help them win 3 out of 4. And he's trying to put a capper on it. Jimmy Williams giving him a lot of congratulations along with the teammates.
Lou Merlone is now the hitter. Jason Varitek with his 17th home run of the season. None bigger than that one right there. And Merlone takes a strike.
Well, Varitek got a fastball in the middle of the plate, and he didn't miss it.
Merlone, 0-2. Now, between innings, I have to give you your due.
Thank you.
Dave Campbell turned to us here in the booth and said, watch, Varitek's going to lead off the inning with a home run. Now, if you really were a big guy, you would have said it on the air. But now I'm just covering for you.
Well, I didn't get a chance. He hit the second pitch.
1 ball and 2 strikes. He really said that. Very impressive. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Lou Merlone. A run in here in the top half of the 13th. And Merlone with a little bloop into short center field, and back goes Alomar to make the catch. 1 out, 1 in, and there is Jason Varitek.
Time to look ahead to the bottom of the 13th and see what the Tribe has to offer. Richie Sexson, a 30-home run man, Enrique Wilson, and Einar Diaz. And the Indians do have some alternative options on the bench. Carlos Baerga, Alex Ramirez. Manny Ramirez is over there, remember. Sandy Alomar could hit. A guy named John McDonald. So Mike Hargrove's still got some bullets left in the pistol.
That's no pistol in the Indian roster. That's a full-fledged howitzer. Indians look tired, don't they? That home run by Jason Varitek has given the Red Sox a 5-4 lead.
There's been a lot of heroes on both sides today. Tyler Houston certainly was one for the Cleveland Indians.
And Nixon drills one deep to right field. That's back, and that's gone. A home run for Trot Nixon. His 14th home run of the season, and the Red Sox now lead at 6-4. So Jim Brower here in the 13th inning surrenders a leadoff home run to Jason Varitek, and now a 1-out home run to Trot Nixon, and the Sox lead by 2.
Well, Nixon's a guy that in the month of April went 4 for 38, but Jimmy Williams stuck with him. He's hit 4 home runs now in the last 5 games. And just part of that unsung group of Red Sox heroes that they've had all year long.
Nixon's the one with his 14th home run of the season. Now Jose Offerman. And what's left of the crowd here at Jacobs Field. It began with 43,224. They are now making their way toward the exits, but the Indians, of course, have Sexson, Wilson, and Diaz hitting in the bottom of the 13th.
Well, if it's not too premature, and with the Indians, it always could be, but Pedro Martinez, 7 innings, 14 strikeouts. Jose Offerman's had a big night, knocking in 3. How about the play that Jeff Fry made on Omar Vizquel back in the 11th inning to extend this game? Rod Beck, 3 courageous innings. And then Varitek and Trot Nixon here in the 13th.
Really a microcosm of the Red Sox season. They get an outstanding performance, a typically outstanding performance from Pedro. But then these unsung guys, Fry with the great defensive play, Varitek and Nixon with clutch home runs and a ground ball to second base. Alomar will throw out Offerman and 2 out.
Well, the reason that home run that Nixon hit is so big, with Richie Sexson leading off the bottom of the 13th, Wasden can go right after him now. Worst case scenario, he hits a home run and gets the Indians within 1. But he doesn't have to be quite as cautious.
So Jason Varitek, the home run hitting hero at the moment, and a fly ball to right field. Justice is there, and justice is done, and so are the Red Sox, who scored 2 in the top half of the 13th and lead 6-4. John Wasden now in a position to win the game for the Boston Red Sox. The Braves and Padres are in the 7th inning in San Diego. The Padres are leading Atlanta 2-1. Bob Carpenter and Rick Sutcliffe continue to warm in the bullpen, and they'll have it as soon as we're done here. Richie Sexson leading it off in the home half of the 13th. Sexson tonight has struck out 3 times, a sacrifice fly, a walk, and a run scored. Richie with 30 home runs and 108 RBIs. Takes a strike on the outside edge. It's 1-1.
That also the difference. Down 2, the Indians probably taking a strike, where if they were down 1, Sexton would have been pulling the trigger as soon as it left Wasden's hand.
Strike on the outside corner again. It's 1-2. Get the sense those 2 home runs have just deflated the Tribe. The Tribe again not playing with a whole lot of pressure on themselves. Red Sox on the other hand in a real must-win situation. Sexton is struck out, so the Indians have 2 outs left in their deck of cards.
Well, important to get that leadoff hitter, especially after you've taken a lead. It's always important, and in 13 innings, the Red Sox have gotten the leadoff hitter 12 times, and against a potent offense like Cleveland, that's a good way to shut them down.
Enrique Wilson, in his last at-bat, robbed by Damon Buford, and it's quickly 0-1. Wilson came in to replace Tyler Houston at third base. Enrique, a .260 hitter with 1 home run, 22 RBIs. Switch hitter. Takes a fastball inside. 1-1.
Matter of fact, that's 8 times in 13 innings the Tribe's leadoff hitter has struck out. Pretty good way of assuring they don't get on base.
1 ball, 1 strike, and 1 out. Wilson has to dance out of the way. It's 2-1. Two balls and 1 strike, 1 out, bottom half of the 13th. And the Red Sox with the 6-4 lead, and Wilson fouls it back and out of play. It's 2-2.
Just for posterity's sake and sake of accuracy, that's 9 times in 13 innings the Indians' leadoff batter has struck out.
Wow. It's a quarter past midnight. The guy's got shades on. It's like risky business. Here's the 2-2. Foul back.
He probably figured he was going to be here till sunup, so he was just trying to get a leg up on it.
2 balls and 2 strikes, 1 out. On home runs in the 13th inning by Jason Varitek and Trot Nixon. The Red Sox with the 2-run cushion. Wasden to Wilson. 2 out and nobody on. And so now the Indians are down to their final out. And Mike Hargrove can only wonder what might have been tonight. What might have been had Jeff Fry not made that game-saving defensive play. Back in the 11th inning.
20 Tribesmen have struck out tonight. Pedro with 14. The bullpen has 6.
And so Einar Diaz, who has 2 hits in 5 at-bats, 0-1. So Wasden has gotten ahead of all 3 of the hitters he's faced here in the 13th. Padres and Braves are coming right up. The Pods leading Atlanta 2-1 in the 7th inning in San Diego. Bob Carpenter, Rick Sutcliffe are getting ready. And a little nubber at third base. Merlone throws out Diaz, and the game is over. And a big win for the Boston Red Sox with 2 runs in the top half of the 13th inning. Home runs by Varitek and Nixon. 6-4. The Red Sox beat the Tribe. Coming up next, the Braves and Padres. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, now celebrating our 20th anniversary.